Chapter 41. The Incense of Subverting Ideas. Although heaven fragrant wood was only a rank 1 spiritual treasure, it was basically the best seasoning on earth. Just when Zhang Han just placed the heaven fragrant wood seasoning into the seasoning bottle, 2 more customers came into the restaurant. Not sure what was going on, the 2 customers were again females and seemed to be around the age of 20. This was the 3rd batch of customers already, and furthermore, the females were all of the same suits. Could it be that this restaurant attracts females? The 2 females seemed somewhat non-mainstream. Their hair was dyed yellow-purple, which looks very bright, and their dressing was also somewhat wild, seemingly to be females in their rebellious phase. "Hey, boss. Give us the menu." One of the females, which had a pointy face, said loudly. "No menu, there are only egg fried rice and cow milk today." Zhang Han replied after packing the heaven fragrant wood. "Nanny?" The pointy-faced female opened her eyes wide and sneered. With some sneer in her tone, she said, "What kind of joke is this? If you only have egg fried rice, why did you even bother opening a restaurant? What other people sell in their restaurant has nothing to do with you." The pointy-faced female's companion patted on her, then turned her gaze to Zhang Han and said, "How much do your egg fried rice and cow milk cost?" Without a menu, they naturally did not know the price too. Thus, she asked. Upon hearing that, Zhang Han slightly went into a daze. He had never thought about the price before. After muttering for a while, he looked towards the female who asked him and said, "How much do the egg fried rice and cow milk at other places cost?" The female's brows wrinkled slightly. She felt that this restaurant was becoming more and more unqualified. If not for the restaurant being very clean, she would even suspect that this person did not even have a business permit. Normally for restaurants like yours, a plate of egg fried rice normally costs around 28 RMB. And a cup of cow milk would cost 8 RMB. Normally for small restaurants and peddlers, each plate of egg fried rice would only cost 12 RMB, and a cup of cow milk would only cost 3 RMB. But for Zhang Han's restaurant, which was this clean and graceful, the price would be higher a bit, which was pretty close to what female said. "Oh, then, my egg fried egg will be 280 RMB per plate, and the cow milk will be 80 RMB per cup." Zhang Han nodded his head and replied. Little did he know, his words caused the expression of the 2 female customers to change. Even Liang Mengkai also took a look at Zhang Han somewhat bizarrely, not knowing where he got the confidence from to dare to sell 10 times the price. "Are you mad?" The pointy-faced female's tone became sharp, as she said, "What kind of business are you doing? A plate of egg fried rice for 280 RMB. Kitchen God Wang Long's egg fried rice can be sold for 5,000 RMB. But do you think that you are him? If you were him, would you still be opening a small restaurant here?" Wang Long was Xiangjiang's famous chief god. His title of chief god was absolutely not undeserved. His cooking skills were very high, and even Zakai's movie, The God of Cookery, was filmed using his foods as a model. Furthermore, Wang Long had worked as a chef in many famous 5-star restaurants that were in Xiangjiang and was deeply liked by the higher society people. Even furthermore, many big shots whose name could shake an area were also his frequent customers. Thus, he was able to sell a plate of egg fried rice for 5k RMB. Even more, the 5k RMB egg fried rice was always mentioned by others and had been on the lead news for quite a number of times. Many people knew about that, but Zhang Han did not understand any of that, and also did not have the interest to understand. "If you are not eating, then leave." Zhang Han frowned slightly when he saw that Meng Meng was somewhat afraid because of that female's sharp voice, and said with a deep voice, "Also, I don't know whatever Wang Long or Li Long. If he sells it for 5k RMB, I will sell it for 50k RMB then." "You." The pointy-faced female was just about to start fuming but was pulled back by her companion that was beside her. Although her companion was dressed quite wildly too, it could still be seen that she was still the relatively tender type. Although she was unhappy in her heart, her tone was still calm. "Mister, the price that you are selling is indeed somewhat excessive. to the point that we can go to the Consumer Association to complain about you. Furthermore, Wang long sold a plate of egg fried rice for 5k RMB, but the rice he used is Thailand rice, and the rice was even dried for a year. Not anyone can sell a plate of egg fried rice for such a high price. Oh? Zhang Han took a look at the woman and said with a trace of disdain in his tone, let's not talk about drying the rice for a year. Even if he dried the rice for 100 years, his rice would also not be comparable to my rice. Regarding ingredients, in this world, there was no rice that could be compared to the rice that was grown at Crescent Mountain. Whatever Thailand rice, Australia rice, North America rice, they could not be compared against Zhang Han's rice. On Earth, Martial Arts World or Cultivation World may perhaps exist too, and they would perhaps also have high-grade rice. But who could confirm it if no one has ever seen it? And even if there really were other high-grade rice, don't forget that Crescent Mountain was still able to continue growing. Crescent Mountain had only just taken form. After Thunder Yang Tree finishes constructing Crescent Mountain for 3 times, at that time, Crescent Mountain would thoroughly transform into a true treasure land. At that time, the ingredients that were grown in Crescent Mountain would definitely be matchless. You, truly unreasonable. Let's go, the female said angrily. Fearing that the pointy-faced female would start raging, she grabbed the pointy-faced female and left the restaurant angrily. Daddy, they are so fierce, Meng Meng said softly. They are but insects who have no insight. You don't have to care about them. Daddy will start cooking now. We will be able to eat in a while. Zhang Han smiled slightly. Oh, alright. Don't care about the insects, N. Meng Meng replied, then turned her head around and continued watching the television. This scene caused Liang Mengkai's expression to immediately become stiff. The corner of her mouth twitched slightly as she sighed in her heart at Zhang Han's unusual teaching method. Just when Zhang Han was beginning to cook, Liang Mengkai opened her mouth and asked, hey, you are not really intending to sell a plate of egg fried rice for 50k RMB, right? In Liang Mengkai's point of view, a plate of egg fried rice for 50k RMB was really a bit over the top. Although 50k was not much to her at all, but no one would want to anyhow spend their money away like this. 280 RMB. Zhang Han replied without raising his head. In Zhang Han's point of view, it was reasonable even if he sold the egg fried rice for 50k RMB per plate. But after thinking about it, there was no need to make others feel too astonished. Just the price of 10 times more than a normal plate of egg fried rice will do. Oh. Liang Mengkai nodded her head and curled her lips. Faster a bit, I'm feeling super hungry. Faster a bit, Meng Meng is also feeling super hungry. Meng Meng pouted her mouth and urged, alright, it will be ready in a while. Zhang Han laughed lightly and began cooking the egg fried rice. There were quite a few methods to cook egg fried rice. One of the methods was to mix the beaten egg with the rice. That way, the egg fried rice that was cooked would be gold color, with every grain of rice being coated by the egg. However, Zhang Han did not intend to cook it this way, and instead intended to cook the egg and rice separately. Thus, Zhang Han poured the eggs into the pan and stir-fry it. After stir-frying the eggs into small pieces, he took the eggs out of the pan. Eggs cook very quickly and were not suitable for stir-frying for too long. If the egg was overcooked, the taste of the egg would not be as good. Zhang Han poured some soybean oil into the pan, added in the carrot cubes, stir-fry it for a while, and added in the rice. After stir-frying it well, he added in the eggs and sprinkled a bit of salt and 13 spices. When the egg fried rice was about to be done, Zhang Han sprinkled the heaven fragrant wood seasoning. Immediately, the fragrance of the egg fried rice became somewhat stronger. After cooking finish, Zhang Han split the egg fried rice into 3 portions. Zhang Han and Meng Meng used porcelain plate for the egg fried rice and glass cup for the cow milk. While Liang Mengkai was given disposable utensils. Zhang Han placed the 2 plate of egg fried rice and 2 cups of cow milk on the dining table and opened the crystal chandelier on top. Immediately, the lighting in the house became brighter. Meng Meng, come. Time to eat. Zhang Han carried Meng Meng and walked towards the dining table. After sitting down, he took a look at Liang Mengkai indifferently and said, "You go take yourself." "Ah?" Liang Mengkai slightly went into a daze and felt somewhat indignant in her heart. In this restaurant, the customers still have to take the food themselves. "Humphrey, I will see if this egg fried rice of yours is worth 280 RMB or not." Liang Mengkai knew that she would not be able to change Zhang Han's mind and thus snorted lightly and walked towards the kitchen unwillingly. Seeing that the utensils were all disposable products, this treatment caused Liang Mengkai's expression to become somewhat rigid and felt discontent in her heart. But in the next moment, the fragrance that assailed her nostrils immediately dispelled all the discontent in her heart. "It smells so nice." Liang Mengkai sighed in her heart as she felt her stomach starting to grumble. She immediately took a plate of egg fried rice and walked back to the dining table that was in the front of the window. She used 2 times her normal speed to open the disposable chopsticks. When she was about to start eating, she stopped. It was her habit to not rush when eating good food and leave the best for last. Thus, she picked up the paper cup, intending to have a mouth of the cow milk first. However, when she took a mouth of the cow milk, her eyes immediately opened wide. It was the first time that she had tasted such tasty cow milk. Other fresh cow milk, they would taste somewhat bland if you don't add sugar, and even more, if the milk wasn't cooked well, there would be a slightly sour taste. And when you add sugar, it would change the taste of the milk. Whereas this milk that she just drank, there was no taste of sugar at all, but when drank, it still tasted incomparably sweet and rich. The milk fragrance was ample and was extremely rich. As she drank it, she even forgot about the time and where she was, all the way until she finished drinking the cup of cow milk. "Boss, why is this cow milk this fragrant?" Liang Mengkai couldn't help but ask. "This is the world's purest fresh milk." Zhang Han did not turn his head at all as he replied, "Oh." Liang Mengkai nodded her head endearingly. Her gaze was somewhat excited as she looked towards the egg fried rice. Since the cow milk tasted that good, the egg fried rice must definitely also be good. Liang Mengkai wanted to use the chopsticks, but after thinking about it, she picked up the plastic spoon at the side. Liang Mengkai picked up a spoonful of egg fried rice and ate it. The egg was soft and tender. The rice was soft and a bit sticky, and the carrot cubes were a bit crispy. While eating the egg fried rice, the texture was ample. The fragrant of the rice, fragrant of the egg, and a bit of the fragrant of the carrot lingered in her mouth, making her to couldn't help but close her eyes and savor the taste. Is this still even considered egg fried rice? Is there such tasty egg fried rice in this world? This egg fried rice is 100 times, no, 1000 times better than Wang Long's egg fried rice. Liang Mengkai was thoroughly astonished. She was expecting the egg fried rice to give her a surprise, but she had absolutely never thought that the surprise would actually be this huge, fragrant. Only this word was able to describe it. This egg fried rice was really fragrant, even to the point that she felt that the egg fried rice she ate in the past were all fake. She had eaten before the dishes that Wang Long cooked and had also tasted before the 5k RMB egg fried rice. At that time, she thought that Wang Long's egg fried rice was one of the best in this world already. But the egg fried rice that was before her eyes right now had completely overturned her notion. Chapter 42, Conquered Eater. Wang Long's egg fried rice, compared to this egg fried rice, was truly the difference between earth and heaven. After eating a few mouths, Liang Mengkai took the chopsticks that were at the side, picked up a grain of the rice and took a few looks at it attentively. The grain of rice was plump and snow white. She tried biting onto the grain of rice, and the sturdiness of the rice made her exclaim repeatedly, "Seems like what this boss said was true. Even if that Thailand rice was dried for 100 years, it still wouldn't be comparable to his rice." Soon after, she picked up a small piece of egg and tasted it. When she tasted the egg, it actually gave her a feeling that she had never tasted egg before. When she tasted the carrot cube, she finally regained back her conscious. "This carrot is real." Liang Mengkai's gaze was somewhat in a daze. The taste of the carrot finally made her felt that she found a familiar taste. This fried rice is truly worth 50k RMB. For the boss to sell it for 280 RMB, he is really a merchant who has a conscience. Liang Mengkai sighed for a bit. She suddenly thought of the two females. If they were to know the taste of the egg fried rice, they would most likely regret that they left the restaurant. Liang Mengkai started eating the egg fried rice mouth by mouth. As she eats, she gradually forgot about everything. In her eyes, there was only the egg fried rice in front of her. All the way until she finished eating the egg fried rice, Liang Mengkai still subconsciously moved the spoon to the plate. When she realized that there was no more food, a sense of loss actually welled up in her heart. She turned her head around and took a look at the inner side. She saw that Meng Meng and Zhang Han had finished eating and the little princess was currently praising that the food her daddy cooked was really delicious. Boss. Liang Mengkai called out softly. About that. Liang Mengkai said somewhat shyly, I'm still not full yet. I want another plate of egg fried rice and another cup of cow milk. Zhang Han nodded his head and walked to the kitchen counter. There was still a plate worth of egg fried rice left. After placing the egg fried rice onto a plate and pouring a cup of cow milk, he wanted to carry it over to Liang Mengkai, but discovered that the girl was following behind him and looking at him anxiously. Thus, Zhang Han just straightforwardly placed the plate and cup on the kitchen counter. As if obtaining a treasure, Liang Mengkai carried the food very carefully to the dining table. Daddy, Meng Meng still wants to eat, but I am already full. Meng Meng sat on the chair and said with a somewhat perplexed expression. On her plate, there was still 1/3 of egg fried rice left. You cannot eat any more if you are full. Daddy will cook for you again tomorrow morning. Zhang Han walked over and laughed as he patted onto Meng Meng's little head. Humphrey. But why can big sister eat 2 plates? Meng Meng lightly snorted and said, because when a person grows up, their appetite will also become bigger. Then when can Meng Meng grow up? Meng Meng also wants to eat. With her eyes not leaving the egg fried rice that was left on the plate, Meng Meng pouted her mouth and said, Meng Meng will slowly grow up. Zhang Han said as he took the plate away and placed it in the kitchen sink. Not being able to see the egg fried rice, Meng Meng's thoughts of it diminished somewhat. Zhang Han carried Meng Meng and sat on the sofa that was at the side of the piano. Daddy, what are we sitting at here for? Meng Meng still wants to go play toys. Meng Meng asked curiously. We have to rest for a while first after we have finished eating. Listen to Daddy play for you 2 pieces of songs first. You can go and play after finish listening, okay? Zhang Han said with a slight smile. Some people would say that after eating, one has to walk 100 steps to be able to live to 99 years old. But little did they know that this saying was incorrect. Normally after a meal, one has to rest for at least half an hour. And it would only do if they sit down for a short period of time before exercise. If a person was to start exercising immediately after they just had their meal, it would affect their digestive system. When Meng Meng heard that she could not play, her little mouth started pouting. But when she heard that Zhang Han was going to play the piano, she immediately became interested as she raised her little arms and welcomed her daddy to present his piano skill. Zhang Han sat on the piano chair, opened the piano cover and dragged his finger from the left side of the piano key to the right side of the piano key. Hearing the piano's tone, Zhang Han nodded his head in satisfaction. The piano was tuned well. Seems like that friend of Zhao Kai's was indeed a professional. I dedicate variations on canon to my adorable darling Meng Meng. Zhang Han spread out both of his hands, and before playing, looked towards Meng Meng and said with a laugh. This sentence caused Meng Meng to be delighted as she said with her small voice, Daddy, you are the most handsome. Ha ha ha. Zhang Han laughed slightly as he shook his head. After lightly taking a breath in, his fingers started pressing down on the piano keys. A classic piece which had been passed down from ancient times, Variations on Canon, began playing. At this time, Liang Mengkai also finished eating the egg fried rice. She patted onto her stuffed belly and sighed while shaking her head. Isn't this fried rice just too delicious already? Even Liang Mengkai's picky tongue was also able to finish 2 plates of egg fried rice. This alone was enough to show just what kind of existence Zhang Han's egg fried rice was to a foodie. I really don't know how he is able to cook out such a tasty egg fried rice. Liang Mengkai drank a small mouth of cow milk, slowly savoring the pure fragrance of the milk. Suddenly, a piano sound came pouring into her ears. She couldn't help but turned her head round and looked towards the source of the piano sound. He even knows how to play the piano. Liang Mengkai felt somewhat curious in her heart. This is unexpected. He also seems to be able to play the piano quite well. Liang Mengkai looked at the side of Zhang Han's face. Right after her tongue had finished enjoying, another enjoyment was here for her ears. In a moment, she was somewhat dazed and lost in thought. There was some difference in the tempo of the variations on canon that Zhang Han played. The tempo was occasionally fast and occasionally slow. Although the piece of music was still canon, the occasional fast and slow tempo seemed to make the canon become alive. The music was occasionally lively and occasionally melodious. But no matter what, this shows that Zhang Han's piano skill was already at a certain level. He is a master pianist. Liang Mengkai looked at the side of Zhang Han's face and thought to herself. She understood a bit about pianos and also liked listening to a lot of piano songs. She knew that, when a person did not need a musical score and was able to control the tempo of the piano song and not be controlled by the musical score, it means that the person was already a master pianist. Just like the China genius pianist, Liang Zong. Liang Zong was this world's first-rate pianist master. Before returning back to his country, he conquered the conductors of 10 symphony orchestra, conquered the master pianists who were still alive in this world and conquered his teacher, the president of Curtis Institute of Music, Gary. Curtis Institute of Music was one of the top 3 within the world's classic musical academy. But ever since Liang Zong became famous worldwide, Curtis Institute of Music had been ranked first in successive years. When Curtis Institute of Music got those honor, the people in the country still did not know who Liang Zong was. Remember that, there was a time when he came back to the country, and because he had no reputation, the organization requested to change out Liang Zong. This action immediately caused the conductor of the world's top-rate symphony orchestra that was accompanying Liang Zong to fly into a rage on the spot and criticized the organization to be as blind as a bat, to not even know one of the world's top pianist. Why do I feel that he is more formidable than Liang Zong? As Liang Mengkai listens to Zhang Han play the piano, this kind of feeling suddenly bubbled up from her heart. Even she herself was somewhat surprised at this feeling. It must be known that Liang Zong was one of this world's renowned top pianist. If Zhang Han was to know Liang Mengkai's thoughts, he would definitely laugh lightly in his heart. If you had 500 years, you would also be able to be this good at the piano. This piece is finished. I will now dedicate Johi Sashi's Summer for Meng Meng. Zhang Han laughed lightly and said, "Daddy is so awesome." Meng Meng said with a worshipping look on her face. Although she was somewhat in a daze when listening to the piano song her daddy played, but seeing her daddy's fingers moving at lightning speed on the piano keys, she felt that her daddy was very awesome. Liang Mengkai sat on the chair, having no thoughts of leaving. She somewhat acknowledged Zhang Han in her heart, although the first meeting they had wasn't pleasant. Just when Zhang Han was about to begin playing the piano again, another batch of customers came to the restaurant. The customers this time was finally males. 4 young guys who seemed to be of the age of 17 walked into the restaurant. "Boss, what food do you have here?" One of the young guys opened his mouth and asked. Seeing this, Liang Mengkai lightly sighed in her heart. She felt that the boss was going to start working since there were customers now, thus she also intended to leave. Just that, out of her expectation, Zhang Han did not even turn his head around and replied indifferently, "We are sold for the day." Oh. The few young guys turned around and left. This caused Liang Mengkai to could not help but slightly went into a daze. as she once again felt how formidable Zhang Han was. If she had not already eaten 2 plates of egg fried rice, she would think that this was a fake restaurant. Where would people open a restaurant like this, conveniently selling 2 plates of egg fried rice when he was cooking for his daughter, and not selling any more afterward? What a strange person. Liang Mengkai mumbled to herself. At the next moment, the melodious piano sound rang out once again. The lively tempo of Zhou Hisashi's Summer was played well by Zhang Han. After finishing playing this piece, Zhang Han closed the piano cover and ended his performance. Awesome, awesome. Meng praised. Clap, clap, clap. Liang Mengkai couldn't help but applaud. What is your name? Liang Mengkai looked at Zhang Han and asked somewhat curiously. My daddy is called Zhang Han. I am called Meng. Meng replied with her small voice. Zhang Han. Liang Mengkai laughed and said, you played the piano quite well. Zhang Han nodded his head slightly. The egg fried rice that you made is much tastier, and the cow milk is also super delicious. How did you make those? Is it because the original ingredients are good or something? Liang Mengkai asked extremely curiously. My ingredients cannot be eaten at any other place. Zhang Han laughed slightly and replied, cannot be eaten at any other place? What do I do? My mouth has already been raised picky by you. After eating your rice, I don't even want to eat the rice of other restaurants. Liang Mengkai muttered for a while, then asked hurriedly, what time do your restaurant normally open for business? Depends on my mood, I guess. Zhang Han had also never considered about the operating hours for the restaurant. However, he only intended to sell food when he was cooking for Meng. Seems like I have to make a sign at the door to prevent people from entering during the time when I am not opened for business. Zhang Han stroked his chin and muttered to himself. Depends on your mood? Liang Mengkai slightly went into a daze. It was still the first time that she had seen such a restaurant. However, after thinking about the taste of the egg fried rice just now, she actually had no more interest in any other food and was already thinking about coming here the next day to eat. Thus, she asked, then, do you have any specific time where you will be opened for business? I still want to come here to eat egg fried rice tomorrow. While talking, Liang Mengkai's expression changed into a pitiful look, seemingly as if saying that if she can't eat the egg fried rice, she would be unhappy. Probably morning, noon and night. Morning 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., noon 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., night 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. The restaurant will be opened for business at those time. After thinking about it, Zhang Han gave the precise timings where he would be opened for business. Chapter 43, Actors. Besides egg fried rice, are there any other foods? Liang Mengkai asked. There are. There will be more foods in the future, and the foods will only get better and better, Zhang Han said with a calm tone. Towards his first customer, Zhang Han decided to reply to some of her questions. That's great. Then, will the dishes be as delicious as the egg fried rice? A trace of excitement appeared on Liang Mengkai's expression. Of course. Zhang Han took a look at this beautiful foodie and said with a slight smile, I look forward to eating your food. I had a great time eating today. Here is the money for the food. You don't have to give me the change. I will come again tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Liang Mengkai placed a few $100 bills on the table and said to Zhang Han with a smile. Afterward, she looked towards Meng, stretched out her hand and said, Meng, see you tomorrow. Goodbye. Meng stretched out her little palm and waved. Liang Mengkai waved her hand and left with a smile. Zhang Han walked to the table and picked up the money. There was a total of 800 RMB on the table. Liang Mengkai got 2 plates of egg fried rice and 2 cups of cow milk. According to the price that Zhang Han gave, it was 720 RMB. Originally, with Zhang Han's temperament, he would just charge it as 700 RMB. Seems like that Liang Mengkai had quite an enjoyable meal. Zhang Han casually placed the money in the drawer of the table which the laptop was placed on. Within the drawer, there was roughly 70k plus cash, and within the car that Zhang Han drove, There was also roughly about 60k plus cash. After placing the money in the drawer, Zhang Han originally wanted to play with Meng for a while, but when he turned his head, he discovered that the little princess had already ran to the sofa and was currently playing with her toys on the sofa. Zhang Han smiled and shook his head. After muttering to himself for a bit, he decided to begin writing out those songs. Thus, Zhang Han first went on the internet and searched for a bit. There is quite a lot of negative news regarding Zhou. When Zhang Han opened the web page, at first sight, he saw Zhou's news on the popular search. Since he had nothing to do, he clicked into the news and took a few looks. After looking at the news, he discovered that Zhou's circumstance was not that good. When a person became popular and attracted attention, all sorts of news regarding them would surface from time to time. Every popular celebrity had a lot of negative news regarding them. Recently, there was a lot of negative news regarding Zhou when the situation had gotten more and more problematic. Being afraid of being affected, variety shows, commercial performances and so on all cancelled their collaboration with Zhou. Zhou will be forcibly holding a concert at Lanhai on the 15th. Zhang Han saw another news. The editor who wrote that news seems to be a fan of Zhou. At the bottom of the news, "Your fans still love you," was written. There were also some photos attached to the news, and the news was more or less saying that his fans have not abandoned him. The tickets of the concert were all sold out within an hour and right now, and the price of scalper tickets had already increased 5 times of the original price. Which also means that, right now, the price of an ordinary ticket was already at 3k RMB plus and the price of a VIP ticket was already over 10k RMB. This kind of situation was evidently rarely seen. This situation may also have some relation with that things would develop in the opposite direction when they reached an extreme. Zhou's popularity was high, and right now, all of the news was about negative things regarding him, which caused his fans to be indignant. Just nice. Zhou was going to hold a concert on the 15th and many fans felt that, although the sponsors had abandoned Zhou, they would not abandon him, and thus the tickets were all sold out very quickly. Things would develop in the opposite direction when they reached an extreme, meaning like, when a bad thing becomes incredibly bad, it can become good, turn out to have a positive effect. Something like that I think. Zhang Han muttered to himself for a bit. I can write the song, actor. Although Zhang Han had never chased after celebrities, but there were some singers that he liked listening to, and Zhou was one of them. Zhou's songs were quite nice, and the voice of Zhou was deep and pleasant to listen to. Talking about the song actor, it could be counted as one of his most famous songs. This song had once obtained champion on the world's Chinese music chart. This song had the root of a sad love song. The lyrics interpreted the love, hate, and entanglement of a romantic fable. I will write this song I guess. Zhang Han took out a paper and pen from another drawer, sat on the chair that was in front of the piano, opened the piano cover, closed his eyes and began recalling the accompaniment of actor. The accompaniment was not complicated. The goodness of this song was completely reflected through Zhou's singing skill. Very quickly, Zhang Han recalled the piano accompaniment and tried playing it once. After discovering that the piano accompaniment was the same as the accompaniment in his memory, he took the pen and wrote it down. I still have to finish the complete version of the accompaniment. Zhang Han muttered to himself for a bit. On the internet, he searched for a recording studio that was nearby Crescent Gulf, intending to go there to finish making the music. After searching the location, Zhang Han carried Meng and left the house, and came to a recording studio that was at Crescent Gulf. Although Zhang Han did not understand much about the equipment of the recording studio, music was within one's heart. Through the tuning master's 3 hours of hard work, the background music of actor was manufactured. 3 hours at the recording cost Zhang Han 1.2k RMB. After finishing with those, it was already 10 p.m. night. Returning back to the restaurant, Zhang Han recorded the piano song of actor with his phone and began writing down the lyrics on the file. Simply, talk simply. Please ignore the recent state of mind. You aren't an actor. Don't make up any of those plots. No motives, I only just want to see how you justify your expression of discomfort like an actor of no skill that the audience discern at first glance. Song link. https://www.youtube.com/watch V equals XRFT. The lyrics were written out very quickly, after finishing everything, and furthermore indicated the matters to take note of. Zhang Han arranged everything into a file and sent it over as an email. At this time, Meng, who was waiting at one side, was somewhat impatient already, mumbling about when was it time to go sleep. Zhang Han hurriedly carried Meng and walked towards the bedroom that was on the second floor, preparing to coax Meng to sleep. Meng wanted to listen to a story, and thus Zhang Han told a story for her to listen to. All those Snow White and so on, Meng had already listened before. Even stories like Alice in Wonderland and Frozen, Meng had also listened to it multiple times. Xian knew about stories like those and thus told Meng about those stories a lot of times. There were only stories that Zhang Han did not know, and no stories that Xian could not tell. However, Zhang Han had his own ways. He could tell Meng stories about him searching for treasures. Do you know how Han Yang, immortal monarch, got the heaven-connecting tree? Let me tell you, the story about how he got it is quite complicated. At the same time, at a high-level apartment that was located very nearby to Zhang Han, manager Li Fan took off the high-quality headphones and took a yawn. Taking a look at Jokix, who was playing the guitar and looking for a feeling, he mumbled, "Sigh. Just what are those songs that were delivered to us? They are practically a bunch of freaks. Some of them even said that they don't need any money, but in the end, the songs that they made were all like nursery rhyme." Hearing that, old you want to open a concert and intend to release a new song. Everyone wants to try their luck. Not anyone can write out a classic song, and also not just anyone is able to sing out the classic song. It doesn't matter if there is no good song, I can just sing old songs during the concert. Jokix smiled slightly and replied, "That's true. Rather sing old songs than allowing a lousy song to affect the quality of the concert. I am still too rushed already. How can receiving a good song be that simple?" Li Fan shook his head and a trace of smile appeared on his face as he said, "That's right, those allegation news of yours are very favorable for you. Right now, the public opinion are already leaning towards us. Your fans also did not let you down. The tickets of the concert this time had already raised like crazy. Did the scalpers hoard the tickets?" Jokix frowned slightly and said, "Contact the organizer and tell them that I do not want to see my fans having to spend a very huge sum of money to be able to see my concert. If things like them cooperating with the scalpers arises, I will not work together with them anymore in the future." "All right, I will contact them tomorrow." Li Fan opened a bottle of cocktail, drank 2 mouths, then said, "Other people would rather hope that their tickets would sell for a higher price, while you are the exact opposite. Without the fans, the me right now would not exist. We cannot place the cart before the horse." Jokix said very seriously, "Place the cart before the horse, to neglect the fundamental and instead pay attention to secondary things." "Understood, I will ask them properly tomorrow." Li Fan nodded his head solemnly. Not talking about other things, just talking about Jokix's attitude towards his fans alone. Li Fan sincerely admires Jokix. The current celebrities right now, quite a lot of them would act like they were a big shot, but they had forgotten that the source of them being able to be a big shot was their fans. Lunhai, as the East Pearl of China, Lunhai was naturally very developed. Lunhai's nightscape was very beautiful. At the beach, on a boat, Xian was currently shooting the MV for her song. The current scene she was shooting was her looking deeply in love with a male. The background was the twinkling East Pearl, and that male was Prince Li Cheng, who was requested over by the director. This scene of having to look passionately at Li Cheng made Xian felt very awkward. This was already the 5th shot. Although Xian was currently looking at Li Cheng, in her mind, she was trying hard to think of Meng's figure. Only by doing that, then could she make her expression become somewhat gentle. However, while thinking about Meng, Zhang Han's figure would float past her mind, which made her felt somewhat baffling. Alright, we are done with this scene. Let's shoot the next scene. Xian, you will stand at the edge of the boat with Prince Li. It will still be this angle. After looking at each other passionately for 2 seconds, the two of you will begin kissing. Remember, the kiss has to be a bit lifelike. Kiss scene? Xian's brows wrinkled. Didn't we said that there will be no kiss scene? Zif, who was standing at one side, opened her eyes wide, looked towards the director and said loudly, the script of the music video that I saw previously didn't have a kiss scene in it, right? Why was a kiss scene added in at the last moment? What about the script? The name of this song is called Light Kiss, so isn't it normal to have a kiss scene? As a celebrity, is there not a single bit of this attainment at all? Towards Zif's questioning, the director's expression sunk. Hey, I have previously told you about not having a kiss scene. Don't tell me that the promise of yours at that time was a fart. Zif was somewhat angry in her heart. She knew Xian's temperament. Not talking about that, Xian would not accept a kiss scene in the past. Right now there was Meng Meng, and she was also unclear with the Zhang Han, thus the more that she would not accept kiss scene. Therefore, Zif's tone was already somewhat cold. Oh? Hearing that, the director felt angry in his heart as he glared and said in a very loud voice, do you want to shoot the MV or not? Ah, still want to get angry with me? Was it you all who requested me to help you all shoot the MV, or was it me who requested you all? I will just ask you one sentence. Do you want to shoot the MV or not? If you all do not want to shoot the MV, leave immediately. You. Zif's brows twitched. Just when she was about to counter back, Xian, who was wearing a gown, opened her mouth and said, shoot. But we won't shoot the kiss scene. Xian's tone was cold. There was also no expression on her face, making others not able to make out what she was feeling in her heart. Li Cheng, who was at Xian's side, looked at the scene with the eye of a bystander from the start to finish. However, there was a trace of profound smile in the corner of his mouth. Chapter 44, Xian's Power. Xian was the woman who he had his eyes on, thus he, of course, had to use some tricks. At Imperial Entertainment, no matter who he had his eyes on, there was not a time that Li Cheng had failed. Upon hearing Xian's words, the director turned over, looked at her and said with a sneer, Xian, oh Xian, don't you have any bit of idea just what state you are in right now? How can a has-been celebrity become famous again without paying some price? Not talking about a mere kiss scene, even if it is a passion scene, you also have to accept it. As an older generation in the entertainment industry, don't tell me that you don't even understand this bit of logic. Hearing the director's words, which were just like a reprimand, a trace of light smile flashed through the depth of Li Cheng's eyes. Xian's expression was still the same. With a cold tone, she said, I understand this logic, but I won't shoot the kiss scene. Also, the reason the company let you come here is to coordinate with me to shoot the MV, not for you to teach me how to do things. If you insist on adding the kiss scene, I don't mind not shooting this MV. What did you say? The director's expression became thoroughly gloomy. However, in a moment of time, he also did not have any idea in his heart. He never thought that Xian would be this tough. At a loss, he secretly looked at Li Cheng, wanting to see what Li Cheng wanted to do. Seeing that the situation became cold, Li Cheng finally opened his mouth. Xian, how about I place a protective membrane on my lips for the kiss scene? What do you think about it? A protective membrane was like a plastic membrane, which would sometimes be used when filming a kiss scene. However, most of the time, for the kiss scene to be lifelike, the protective membrane wouldn't be used. Also, within Li Cheng's mind, protective membrane, that kind of thing, was able to be removed easily. During the kiss scene, just fiddle with it for a bit and it would fall off. At that time, wouldn't it be the same as having to kiss for real? Looking at Xian's delicate face and alluring figure, Li Cheng's heart immediately became somewhat hot, especially Xian's red lips, which he looks forward to very much in the next scene. However, Xian's answer caused him to be dazed. I won't shoot any kiss scene. Xian rejected coldly and stiffly. Her tone was extremely resolute. No one suspected that if the director was to insist on the kiss scene, Xian would definitely not shoot the MV. It won't do even with a protective membrane. Li Cheng somewhat couldn't control his expression anymore. Under everyone's gaze, Xian's continuous rejection made him felt somewhat losing face. In any case, Li Cheng was the prince of the member of the board of directors, possessing a high position, and Xian was but a has-been celebrity. If not for having a good face, he wouldn't even pay attention to her. However, she actually didn't give Li Cheng any face right now. How could Li Cheng not felt angry about this? Won't do. Xian rejected coldly once again. In the past, she did not shoot passion scene because she did not want to shoot it. And right now, she had Meng Meng, which was one more reason for her to not want to shoot passion scene. Alright. Li Cheng's gaze sunk as he said with a fake smile, "You can shoot the MV however you like." After finished speaking, Li Cheng left in large steps. "You." The director glared at Xian. "Humphrey, shoot it yourself then." After the director spoke, he turned around and followed with quick steps towards the direction Li Cheng left. "We will shoot the MV ourselves then. Who do you even think you are, idiot?" Zif took a look ferociously at the director and said loudly, "Come, come, come, listen to my command and shoot the MV." With or without that director, it is still the same. Upon hearing that, the director who was leaving almost tripped over. After turning around and glared at Zif, he stormed off in a huff. Liang Mengkai stayed at a luxurious high-level sea view apartment. The neighborhood she stayed at was the same neighborhood as Jokig's. Just that, Jokig's apartment was bought by himself and Liang Mengkai's apartment was rented. Currently, Liang Mengkai was lying down on her bed, using her phone, and just sent a message to a WeChat group. "Guess who I met today? A handsome guy." A person who was called I Am Very Beautiful replied. The profile of I Am Very Beautiful was a guy. He seemed quite delicate and pretty, but anyone who had heard him speak all knew that he fitted with the name very well. Because this guy was that sissy that Zhang Han met at the beach. Incorrect, it should be that you met your ex-boyfriend. A person with the internet name I Am Very Cool replied. This I Am Very Cool was the other female within the three of them. She had short hair and seemed somewhat like a tomboy. Also, her temperament was very candid. What ex-boyfriend? Do you all remember the little lady who I was going to give a beverage to at the beach? Liang Mengkai replied. I am very pretty, I remember. I, of course, remember such an adorable little baby. I am very cool. Can you not be this slowly? You are disgusting me to death. Mengkai, could it be that you ran into that little girl? That's right, I ran into that father and daughter. Hee hee, you all take a guess at what that guy work as? Liang Mengkai replied. I am very pretty. Looking at that harsh look of his, could it be that he is an artist from the slum? I am very cool. I guess a gang person who looks after a place. Although he was somewhat harsh, his manliness was ample. He is much stronger than a certain sissy. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Upstairs is correct. 7-second fish. Upstairs is correct. There was a total of 10 plus people in the WeChat group. They all belonged to the same friend circle. The people who were typing in the chat most of the time were only Liang Mengkai, Sissy, and the short hair woman. Other people would only occasionally type in the chat group. The main reason for that was because that within the three of them, Liang Mengkai had no job, and the sissy and short hair woman had short work time, and thus was relatively free. Where did you all guess to? That guy opens a restaurant. Liang Mengkai snorted lightly. Not intending to keep them in suspense, she typed very quickly with her fingers, let me reveal it to you all. He opens a restaurant that is called Meng Meng's Leisure Restaurant, and his daughter is called Meng Meng. I feel that he has so much love. I am very beautiful, he has so much love. Oh, oh, oh. So that fellow is the boss of a small restaurant. Humphrey. His restaurant is very unique. It was even the first time I have seen it, that kind of restaurant. The decor inside is just like that of a household. Also, You must not think that he is a small boss. His television wall is made with jadeite and there is also a Steinway Model grand piano there. Each of it costs above $1 million. I am very pretty. So he is a rich man. No, rich man, I request for a hug. I am very cool, truly disgusting, damned sissy. 7-second fish, truly disgusting, damned sissy. Beautiful beautiful beautiful, truly disgusting, damned sissy. This is not the main point. Liang Mengkai replied, the main point is that the rice that he cooked was really fragrant. The important thing is that I said really 3 times. From I was small to big, this was the first time that I had eaten such fragrant rice. Just thinking about it now is making me hungry. My saliva is about to drip too. I am very beautiful. Is that true or fake? Big miss, your mouth is so picky that I have never seen you give such an evaluation like this. 7-second fish, what kind of rice? What kind of rice? Quickly say. Egg fried rice. Liang Mengkai replied. I am very cool. PFFT. You are trying to make me laugh. I am not joking. Liang Mengkai replied. His egg fried rice is really fragrant. There is also cow milk too. The cow milk is the most delicious cow milk I have drank. Do you all know? This boss's temperament is really unique. He only opens for business during the time when he is cooking for his daughter. I was only able to eat the egg fried rice after waiting for quite a while. Also, a plate of egg fried rice cost 280 RMB and a cup of cow milk cost 80 RMB. But I personally feel that, don't say 280 RMB. Even if his egg fried rice cost 2.8k RMB, I would also not hesitate to buy it. The egg fried rice is just too delicious already. Liang Mengkai typed out a bunch of words. This made the few others felt slightly dazed. I am very cool. True or fake? Is it really that delicious? Beautiful beautiful beautiful, sticking out tongue / 280 RMB for a plate of egg fried rice and 80 RMB for a cup of cow milk. It is so expensive. I am very beautiful, Humphrey. Why do I not believe it? No matter how it is made, isn't egg fried rice still egg fried rice? Is his egg fried rice stir-fried in heaven? I am a dog if I bluff you all. Liang Mengkai snorted lightly and replied, believe it or not is up to you all. In any case, I'm preparing to sleep right now. I'm afraid that I will not be able to wake up at 7 AM. If I were to miss his egg fried rice, I will not have the appetite to eat anything else. I am very cool. 7 AM is it? I will come too. I am very beautiful. Me too. You two give me a call before 7 AM then. I will go sleep first. Liang Mengkai replied and was intending to go sleep already. Ring. The phone suddenly rang. Liang Mengkai picked the phone up and discovered that it was actually her brother. Liang Hao. Brother, what are you calling me for during this late? Liang Mengkai asked. Mengkai, are you at Xuanhuan right now? Liang Hao laughed and asked. That's right. I am also going to go to Xuanhuan. Liang Hao said unhurriedly. Ah? Liang Mengkai slightly went into a daze and asked, what are you coming here for? You are not going to care about the 2 companies in Singapore? I am currently preparing to hand it over to second uncle and the others. I took over the companies for 2 years and it is already enough that the market value of the 2 companies has been doubled. I will be coming to Xuanhuan to take a long vacation next. Liang Hao laughed and said, TSK, it is truly strange that those people at home would release you out. It is fine if you come too, just nice. I am also quite bored being alone here. I am not going there to play this time. I am going there this time to find Xian. Liang Hao smiled slightly. Right now, his tone was somewhat gentler. Xian? Liang Mengkai slightly went into a daze and said, find her for what? I am already 26 years old. The family kept on wanting to find a marriage for me. But I did not agree. Our father allowed me to settle my girlfriend problem within a year. After thinking back and forth, I feel that Xian suits me the best. Also, I heard that her circumstance at Xuanhuan is not that good. I can try to help her when I come to Xuanhuan too. Liang Hao said unhurriedly. When are you coming to Xiangjiang? Liang Mengkai asked. The earliest would be in a month's time, I guess. I have not decided on a specific time yet. I will come to Xiangjiang after I have settled the company's affairs. Liang Hao replied. Oh, all right then, I'm hanging up. I still have to wake up early tomorrow to go eat egg fried rice. Bye-bye. After speaking Finnish, Liang Mengkai hung up the phone. Before sleeping, Zhang Han's figure and his graceful posture when he played the piano ineffably floated past her mind. That fellow is actually quite handsome too. Liang Mengkai muddle-headedly mumbled and gradually fell asleep. The next morning 6 am+, Zhang Han and Meng Meng woke up and finished washing up. Coming to the first floor, Zhang Han opened the Apple MacBook and played songs that were pleasant to listen to. Preparing for the breakfast, Zhang Han cooked the rice and beat the eggs well. 7 minutes before it was 7 a.m., the restaurant received a customer, or more precisely, an employee from the stir-fry restaurant next door. Boss, can I ask what food do your restaurant sell? An ordinary-looking female who seemed to be the age of 30+ asked curiously. Chapter 45, Restaurant on the Right Track. There are only egg fried rice and cow milk for the time being. Zhang Han turned his head around, took a look at the woman and replied, Mainlander. The female slightly went into a daze. From Zhang Han's Mandarin, she could make out that he was a mainlander. In her gaze, a trace of disdain couldn't help but flash through her gaze. Zhang Han took a look at her indifferently and did not pay attention to her. When a mainlander spoke Mandarin, there would always be some Xiangjiang natives who would reveal out expression of disdain. This was not really discrimination and was instead a kind of dislike. Remember when Zhang Han chat with Zhang Li spoke about this matter. After coming to Xiangjiang for a few years, she also understood why the natives dislike the mainlanders. She said that a lot of mainlanders would use various kinds of methods to give birth in Xiangjiang's hospitals, forcing quite a lot of native pregnant women to have to go to private hospitals that were more expensive. Gradually, the spots of private hospitals were also snatched. You think that you are rich? Sorry. Mainlanders are much richer than you. It was so serious to the point that later on, Xiangjiang's government released out a statute that restricts mainlander pregnant women to come to Xiangjiang to give birth. This statute was met with various kinds of protest. Every time when it was the weekend, especially during public holiday, large quantities of mainlanders would go to Xiangjiang to shop. During that time, there would be mainlanders who don't queue up, shout loudly, crossing roads during a red light. There would also be a lot of goods being bought frenetically until it was sold out. Due to various reasons, Xiangjiang natives dislike mainlanders. But in actual fact, when a forest became big, there would be all kind of birds in it. In every place, there would be both high and low inequality people. There were also a lot of scums who were Xiangjiang natives too. Just that. There was just too many mainlanders who goes to Xiangjiang. However, towards this kind of gaze, Zhang Han had always chosen to disregard it. Why would an ant-eater care about the gaze of a mere ant? Don't talk about Xiangjiang natives, even if it was foreigners, aliens, or cultivators. Zhang Han wouldn't care too. Just those two? I will have a plate of egg fried rice and a cup of cow milk then. The female took out her wallet and asked, how much is the total? A plate of egg fried rice is 280 RMB and a cup of cow milk is 80 RMB. Zhang Han said, if you want to eat, you will have to wait for half an hour. That expensive? Forget it then. The female put away her wallet very quickly. After taking a look at Zhang Han very disdainfully, she turned around and left. After leaving, she went back to the Xiang restaurant that was next door in quick steps. The decor and layout of the inside of the restaurant were quite good. The restaurant's focus was spicy dishes, and the chef was also hired from Xuanhuan with a high price. Because there was not much business in the morning, therefore it was quite idle, and the attendants were only in charge of cleaning the restaurant in the morning. Right now, the restaurant's manager and 5 attendants were sitting on a round table that was situated beside the door. Manager, I went to take a look already. The restaurant at the side is opened by a mainlander. The female returned hurriedly and said as she sat down on the chair, opened by a mainlander. Another mainlander who wants to come to Crescent Gulf to fish for a quick buck. The few attendants discussed for a bit. The manager muttered to himself for a bit and said, "What food does that restaurant sell?" The female's expression paused for a while. With a trace of laughing in her tone, she spoke out 3 words, "Egg fried rice." Everyone first went into a daze for a while. Soon after, they all burst out laughing. "There is also cow milk too." The female quickly added on, "Guess how much he is selling those 2 items? A plate of egg fried rice cost 280 RMB and a cup of milk cost 80 RMB. Those words immediately made the few attendants went into a daze. "Ha ha, has he gone mad from thinking about earning money?" A 20-plus years old male sneered. "Is he even opening a restaurant? It would be strange if he can even have customers." "That's right. Does he think that he is a chef god, to sell the food that expensive? He is not trying to be funny, right?" While discussing spiritedly, the few people could see the trace of sneer in each other's eyes. Although they didn't say it out, in their heart, they felt that there was definitely a problem with the boss's mental. "This is really interesting." The middle-aged manager laughed and shook his head. "I was wondering why the customers that went into that restaurant during the past 2 days all left in less than 2 minutes. So it was a problem with the price." As he spoke, the manager couldn't help but laugh out. Looking towards the female, he asked, "Why didn't you try and see what the taste of an egg fried rice that costs 280 RMB taste like? I am also not sick." The female curled her lips and laughed. In her heart, she felt that eating a plate of egg fried rice that costs 280 RMB was the action that a sick person would do. If it was according to her statement. Right now, 3 sick people had arrived at the front of Zhang Han's restaurant. "Boss, when will the rice be done?" Liang Mengkai walked into the restaurant with a smile. 20 minutes. Zhang Han took a look at her and replied, "We will wait for a while then." Liang Mengkai said. When she saw that the sissy was walking towards the big dining table that Zhang Han uses, she hurriedly reminded, "Hey, this side is where the customers are supposed to sit at." "What? We cannot sit wherever we want?" The sissy slightly went into a daze. "What did you think? That place is the place the boss and his daughter eat at." Liang Mengkai rolled her eyes at him and took the lead to sit on the chair that was at the dining table where the customers were supposed to sit at. The short-haired female did not say anything and straightforwardly sat at the opposite of Liang Mengkai. "Such a small dining table? Shoot, Mengkai, you are not trolling us, right? Where do I sit at if you two sit here?" The sissy said indignantly. "Isn't there space at the table beside us? Don't dawdle and quickly sit down. If not, you can go and wait outside." The short-haired female glared at him. All right, I will sit at the side, okay? Gosh, I will tell you all, if this egg fried rice here doesn't suit my taste, I am going to shoot abuses in the street." The sissy snorted lightly. "You are truly lowly to the point that my scalp is going numb." The short-haired female rolled her eyes. "Ha ha ha. The 2 of you, a sissy and a muscular woman. What a truly matching pair." Liang Mengkai laughed lightly. The sissy's name was Zhao Du, a very strong-willed name, but a very sissy person. The short-haired female's name was Yu Qingqing, a very gentle name, and she has a very candid temperament. What was more interesting was that this Zhao Du had been persistently chasing after Yu Qingqing, and had already chased after her for close to 2 years already. "Who is matching with him? I don't like this sissy at all," Yu Qingqing said petulantly. "Humphrey, I just like masculine woman." Zhao Du mumbled to himself. Soon after, he sized up the inside of the restaurant and said, "Does the decor of this restaurant even looks like that of a restaurant? Just 3 small tables for customers. I reckon that fellow doesn't even have the sincerity to open a restaurant." "What does the restaurant's decor have anything to do with you? Can you not be so nosy?" Yu Qingqing turned her head and slapped onto Zhao Du's shoulder. All right, I won't say any more, okay?" Zhao Du twisted his body for a bit and said, Although this restaurant doesn't seem like a restaurant, the decor of this restaurant is quite unique. There is actually really a jadeite wall. I must say, the Steinway Model grand piano is very cool, just that. I don't know if that is purely a decoration item or not. Let me tell you, Sissy Zhao. Liang Mengkai pouted her mouth towards Zhang Han and said, his piano skill does not pale in comparison to Liang Zong's piano skill. True or fake? He is that good? Yu Qingqing said, somewhat amazed. Oh, Mengkai, from what I see, could it be that you have fallen for that old man, bragging so much about that guy? TSK. Zhao Du said eccentrically. While talking, his nose suddenly smelled something, and said bewilderedly, is this the smell of sheep milk? It smells so fragrant. That's right, this milk seems to be very pure. Yu Qingqing also spoke about the smell of the cow milk. Turning her gaze towards the direction of the smell, she saw that Zhang Han was currently pouring out 2 glasses of goat milk, and within the pot, there seems to still some goat milk left. The goat milk was piping hot and the milk fragrant drifted about in the restaurant. Grumble, grumble. Liang Mengkai's stomach grumbled as she subconsciously stuck out her tongue and licked her sexy lips and mumbled, I'm almost at my limit already. After waiting urgently, finally, the torturing 20 minutes had passed. Meng, let's go eat. Zhang Han placed the breakfast on the dining table, walked to the sofa and carried Meng, who was still watching the cartoon with great interest. Time to eat. Meng raised her little arms while she was within Zhang Han's embrace and cheered. When she sat at the dining table, she finally saw Liang Mengkai and the 2 other people. Big sister is here? Meng waved her little palm. Good morning Meng. Liang Mengkai smiled sweetly. When she smiled, on the right side of her cheek, there was a small dimple. Good morning Meng. Zhao Du and Yu Qingqing also smiled and greeted. Good morning. Humphrey Meng first greeted them politely. Soon after, she remembered the words that the 2 of them spoke at the beach, and thus snorted lightly, then turned her head back, picked up her spoon and began eating the breakfast. The utensils are on the counter. The rice is inside the rice pot. Go get the rice yourself. The big pot beside the rice pot is cow milk and the small pot is sheep milk. Zhang Han said towards the 3 people. All right. Liang Mengkai stood up and walked towards the counter excitedly. Yu Qingqing slightly wrinkled her brows. Opening a restaurant, yet making the customers get the food themselves. This was still the first time she had met with this kind of thing. It was fine if you opened a buffet, but the crucial point is that you are actually a small restaurant that sells egg fried rice. Humphrey. Zhao Du rolled his eyes at Zhang Han and walked to the counter while swinging his hips. It is actually really just purely egg fried rice. There are only egg and rice, and the chopped onion in the egg fried rice is also this less. However, the smell seems to be still okay. Zhao Du took a sniff. After the 2 females had taken their egg fried rice, he also took a plate of egg fried rice for himself. For the cow milk and sheep milk, the 3 of them all chose the sheep milk since they had often drunk cow milk and rarely drank sheep milk. Just that, after Zhao Du and Yu Qingqing finished pouring the sheep milk, they were dazed when they turned around. It could be seen that Liang Mengkai walked back to the dining table in quick steps, and right after she placed her breakfast on the dining table, she immediately began devouring the egg fried rice. Looking at the way Liang Mengkai ate, the 2 of them somewhat felt that she seemed to have not eaten for 3 days. Is it really that delicious? Yu Qingqing and Zhao Du took a look at each other and mumbled, let's go and try how it tastes. Zhao Du said, and the 2 of them quickly walked back to the dining table. After sitting down, Yu Qingqing looked at Liang Mengkai, who didn't even raise her head and felt somewhat dazed again. Snapping out of it, she took a spoon of egg fried rice and placed it into her mouth. The immediate moment when she tasted the taste of the egg fried rice, her eyes gradually became bigger and bigger. Is this really egg fried rice? Suspicion actually arose within Yu Qingqing's heart. She closed her eyes and chewed a few times. After she swallowed the egg fried rice, Her entire body immediately felt relaxed. Remember that a chef god once said this: the joy in culinary delicacy is that it could make a person's heart and soul be absorbed into it when they eat it, just like entering into a wonderful trip of gustatory delight. Yu Qingqing was just like that right now. She was incomparably enchanted with eating the egg fried rice. Faintly, she seemed to have heard Zhao Du's sobbing sound from behind. Boo-hoo-hoo ... This is too delicious already. This is really too delicious already ... This isn't even egg fried rice. This is practically life. Chapter 46. The Temptation of Food. Yu Qingqing ate the egg fried rice with a blurred expression. Even when there was no more egg fried rice in her plate, she was also totally unaware of it and was still moving her spoon to pick up the egg fried rice. After moving a few times, Yu Qingqing finally discovered that she had already finished the plate of egg fried rice. Boss, I want another plate. Yu Qingqing only felt that she was much hungrier after eating that plate of egg fried rice. Thus, without even thinking about it, she said out the sentence, "Go get it yourself then." Without turning his head, Zhang Han replied indifferently, "Oh." Yu Qingqing nodded her head. When she stood up, she saw that Liang Mengkai had already gotten another plate of egg fried rice and another cup of milk and was walking back to the dining table. "Oh, that's right, I haven't drink the sheep milk yet." While Yu Qingqing was eating the egg fried rice, she completely forgot about the surroundings and had even forgotten about the sheep milk that was beside her plate. Thus, Yu Qingqing hurriedly picked up the cup of sheep milk. Drinking it in one gulp, Yu Qingqing couldn't help but closed her eyes and experience the taste of the sheep milk. After drinking it, the taste still lingered in her memory. Qingqing. Liang Mengkai had after all eaten a plate already and her consciousness was back to normal at the moment. Calling out to Yu Qingqing, she couldn't help but reminded her, there is only a plate worth of egg fried rice in the rice pot. If you want to eat it, you have to be quick. Ah? Liang Mengkai's words pulled Yu Qingqing back to reality. After coming back to her senses, she rushed to the counter with lightning-fast speed and immediately transferred all the remaining egg fried rice that was in the rice pot to her plate. There was no more sheep milk, so she poured herself a cup of cow milk instead. After finishing all those, she walked back to the dining table leisurely. After placing down her plate and cup, she took a look at Liang Mengkai and discovered that Liang Mengkai was eating very slowly. After thinking about it for a bit, she came to an understanding. There was only those egg fried rice left, so naturally, she would have to eat it slowly and properly enjoyed the taste of the egg fried rice. After they had finished eating, the two of them faintly heard a sobbing sound coming from Zhao Du's direction. The two of them stood up and walked to the front of Zhao Du. Upon seeing Zhao Du, they discovered that Zhao Du was actually really crying. "What are you crying for?" Yu Qingqing said petulantly. "Boo-hoo." Zhao Du ate the egg fried rice while sobbing at the same time. "It is too delicious already." "If it is delicious, then it is delicious. What is there to cry for?" Liang Mengkai said while laughing. "I have to leave for a business trip next week. Once I leave, it is going to be for half a year." It was already very hard to not be able to see my Qingqing for half a year. But right now, after eating such a delicious egg fried rice, I'm afraid that I will starve to death when I leave for my business trip. Zhao Du said very sadly. "Look at you, this sissy look. Didn't you want to change your company since long ago? If you don't want to leave for the business trip, you can just resign." Yu Qingqing rolled her eyes at him. Although Zhao Du's name seemed very strong-willed, his temperament was quite indecisive and was relatively sissy. Adding his tone with his originally delicate and pretty looks, it made him seem even more sissy. This made Yu Qingqing felt really anxious in her heart. If he was to be a bit more strong-willed, wouldn't I have accepted him long ago? DSK, who would accept him? Yu Qingqing spat at herself in her heart. That's right, if you were to leave for the business trip for half a year, after you come back, I reckon that Yu Qingqing would have already been chased by someone else. Liang Mengkai teased. What? Zhao Du went into a daze. His eyes looked around for a while, and after a while, with a red face, he said resolutely, I will and resign later on then. I will eat 3 plates of egg fried rice today. After eating finish, I will go and find the head and have a good talk with him. Humphrey, PFFT. When Liang Mengkai saw Zhao Du speaking such resolute words in such an effeminate way, she couldn't help but laugh. A dog can't stop himself from eating shit. Yu Qingqing's tone was filled with helplessness. Pulling onto Liang Mengkai's hand, she went back to the dining table and slowly tasted the cow milk. Mengkai, the food here is really as delicious as you described. How could an egg fried rice be cooked this deliciously? I totally can't imagine it at all. Don't say 280 RMB, even if it was 2.8k RMB, I would also feel that it was worth it. Yu Qingqing drank small mouthfuls of cow milk while sighing at the same time. When I ate it for the first time, I myself also couldn't believe it. But the fact was that the food here was just that delicious. Furthermore, when Liang Mengkai spoke halfway, two middle-aged men suddenly walked into the restaurant. Excuse me, what breakfast do you have here? The cultured and refined-looking middle-aged man asked. We are sold out. After Zhang Han used the wet towel to wipe his hands, he turned his head around and said, You are sold out that fast? Won't it do if you cook another breakfast on the spot? The middle-aged man asked confusedly. No time. Zhang Han replied indifferently. When Zhang Han said that, everyone who was present all slightly went into a daze. You open a restaurant and yet you tell your customers that you don't have the time to cook. Those words also made the expression of the two middle-aged men to become somewhat stiff, and evidently revealing out a dissatisfied expression. However, the two of them did not say anything and just left while slightly wrinkling their brows. At this time, Liang Mengkai took a look at Yu Qingqing, whose gaze was somewhat sluggish. Laughing slightly, she continued, Furthermore, the boss's restaurant is only open for business when he is cooking for his daughter. The restaurant isn't open for business during normal business hours. You should know how hard it is to eat his food now, right? Yes. Is it very hard? A trace of grave expression appeared on Yu Qingqing's face as she said, Seems like we will have to come on time next time. If the egg fried rice was to be tasted by other people, it will be very bad. What do you mean by that? Liang Mengkai asked curiously. Such good food like this, there was most likely no foodie who would be able to resist it. Not being able to eat the restaurant's food could be even counted as a kind of regret. Letting other people taste the food of the restaurant and blessing the foodies, isn't it quite a wonderful thing? You think about it. Yu Qingqing said with a heavy expression, if other people were to know how delicious the food here is, with just that tiny amount of food that the boss cooks every time, wouldn't it cause us to not be able to have enough to eat? Liang Mengkai's expression changed slightly and was shocked by just thinking about it. Thinking about having to queue up when she comes to the restaurant to eat in the future, yet not being to eat a single grain of egg fried rice after queuing for half a day. Just the thought of it was enough to make her feel afraid. It won't do. We will have to come the earliest in the future, we cannot let others be in front of us. Liang Mengkai said anxiously. Actually, I have a method to solve this problem. Yu Qingqing's eyes shined as she said with a mysterious smile. What method? Liang Mengkai asked hurriedly. That is. Yu Qingqing stretched her head to the front and said in a small voice, wouldn't it do if you chase until that fellow? You can get an adorable daughter for free, and we would also be able to eat such fragrant food every day. Furthermore, you look at him. He is actually quite handsome, isn't he? Also, he has good taste, knows how to cook delicious food, and even knows how to take care of people. He is definitely the best choice as your other half. After Liang Mengkai listened to what Yu Qingqing said, her eyes gradually opened bigger and bigger. What are you even saying? Liang Mengkai's face immediately became red and her expression was somewhat shy. Look at that blushing expression of yours. Wait for me. I will go and ask him. Yu Qingqing grinned, stood up and walked towards the dining table that Zhang Han was at. Hey, what are you doing? Quickly come back. Liang Mengkai did not know why. Upon seeing that, her heart started jumping and she became anxious. This kind of nervous feeling made her felt somewhat at a loss and helpless, and even made her to not dare to turn her head around to see what would happen next. The shyness only occupied a small part in her heart. Most of it was her feeling embarrassed about this kind of thing. She felt that since the boss already has a daughter, he would definitely have a wife too, and she herself would also not go and be someone's mistress. Yu Qingqing is very candid. If she were to say anything that she isn't supposed to say, how will I be able to come to face with the boss in the future? While contemplating, Liang Mengkai stuck up her ears, preparing to listen to what Yu Qingqing was going to say. If she were to say anything that was too excessive, she will stand up and stop her. Luckily, although Yu Qingqing was candid, she was not reckless. Boss, the egg fried rice that you cook is really delicious. It is the first time that I had eaten such a fragrant and delicious egg fried rice. You are too awesome. Yu Qingqing raised her thumb towards Zhang Han and said, N. Zhang Han smiled slightly. Of course, my daddy is very awesome. After drinking the last mouth of milk, Meng Meng patted her small tummy and said with a proud face, Ha ha ha, Meng Meng, since you are this adorable and pretty, your mother is definitely also very pretty, right? Yu Qingqing laughed and asked, That's right, mummy, she is very pretty. Meng Meng giggled and said, Boss, you are so blessed to have a beautiful wife and an adorable child. I'm so envious of you. How many years have you been married for? Yu Qingqing asked curiously. I haven't married yet. Zhang Han slightly shook his head and replied. After finished speaking, he carried Meng Meng. Then Meng Meng is? Yu Qingqing hurriedly asked. My blood daughter. Without turning his head, Zhang Han replied as he carried Meng Meng and walked towards the sofa. Oh, a trace of excitement flashed through Yu Qingqing's face. She hurriedly walked back to the dining table and said secretly, Mengkai, your chance is here. Did you hear it just now? He is definitely divorced. Wahahaha, that's great. If Mengkai were to be able to settle him, you will, in turn, be blessing us. DSK, don't anyhow say. Liang Mengkai rolled her eyes petulantly at Yu Qingqing and said, we will just eat our food honestly and not do anything. Let me tell you, don't anyhow try to match two people together. How can this be called anyhow? Isn't he handsome? Yu Qingqing said. In the past, I didn't feel that he was handsome, but right now I feel that he is especially handsome. For a person to be able to cook such delicious food and also be able to play the piano that well, it is very rare. Liang Mengkai replied honestly. Isn't it settled then? He's handsome and you are pretty. What an ideal couple. Yu Qingqing said with a smile. I'm not talking with you anymore. Liang Mengkai snorted lightly. I finally finished eating. This feels great. This feels so great. I still want to eat 2 more plates. Zhao Du finally finished eating now. In a moment, he felt that his entire body was relaxed and felt very great. Eat what eat? There is no more egg fried rice already. Yu Qingqing pouted her mouth. Ah, there is no more? I still haven't eaten full yet. Zhao Du immediately became stupefied. Who told you to eat so slowly? Yu Qingqing rolled her eyes at him. Sigh, all right. Zhao Du laughed bitterly. However, in the next moment, his expression changed, as he stood up with a serious expression and said with an extremely resolute tone, let's go. For Qingqing, and for this egg fried rice, I have decided to go resign right now. I won't work at that company starting from today. Oh, Sissy Zhou is actually resolute now? Yu Qingqing curled her lips and laughed. Afterward, she stood up, took out her wallet, counted the money, looked towards Zhang Han and said, Boss, pay the bill. Just place the money on the table will do. Zhang Han was still tidying up the kitchen. Without raising his head, he replied, all right. Yu Qingqing replied and straightforwardly placed the bill of the 3 of them on the table. Boss, what time will you be open for business during noon? Liang Mengkai asked. 12 p.m. plus. Zhang Han replied. We will come again at 12 p.m. Liang Mengkai smiled sweetly, turned around and left. Chapter 47. This is the song I want. After Zhang Han tidied up the kitchen, he took a cloth and came to the white-color dining table. He picked up the bunch of 100 RMB notes on the table, and without looking at all, he placed it into the drawer of the computer counter. The three of them ate a total of 5 plates of egg fried rice and 6 cups of milk. Yu Qingqing had a delightful meal and straightforwardly left 2.1 krmb. If it was counted normally, 5 plates of egg fried rice were 1.4 krmb and 6 cups of milk were 480 rmb. In total, just 1880 RMB was enough. But Yu Qingqing did not count it like that. She counted a plate of egg fried rice as 300 RMB and a cup of milk as 100 RMB, which was 1.5 krmb plus 600 RMB, 2.1 krmb. However, Zhang Han was also lazy to bother counting the money. To him, money was just a number. Although he did not have much money right now, Zhang Han had never worry about him not having money to spend in the future. After throwing away all the utensils on the table into the rubbish bin and wiped the table, his phone rang. Taking a look at the time, it was only 8 AM right now. The phone call that was coming at this timing was the time where Xian would call to chat with Meng Meng. Zhang Han. Xian's voice sounded nimble as usual, but Zhang Han could still make out a bit of exhaustion in her voice. Every time when I call you, all you do is, N. Are you that not willing to talk to me? There was some discontent in Xian's voice. Not knowing why, every time when she heard Zhang Han or N indifferently, Xian would always feel angry. If she was at his side, without thinking at all, Xian would definitely reprimand him. Whereas Zhang Han himself, he would feel baffled every time. You only call out my name when you call me, what else do you even want me to say to you? After remaining silent on the phone for a moment, Xian's voice became cold as she said, pass the phone to Meng Meng, I want to talk with her. Oh. Zhang Han nodded his head and walked towards Meng Meng. After muttering to himself for a bit, he decided to ask, how is the shooting of the MV? Hearing your tone, you seem to be somewhat exhausted. Humphrey. This is more like human words. Xian snorted lightly. Her tone became somewhat gentler as she said, I am indeed quite exhausted. I had to shoot until morning 3 AM yesterday and had only slept for 4 hours. In a while, I still have to go to the outskirts to continue shooting. The MV must be finished shooting by the 10th and I will be coming back to rest for a day during the 11th. On the 12th, there is a commercial performance at Victoria Harbour. On the 13th, I have to go and look at the final manufacturing of the song. And on the 14th, I have to announce the news conference. Hearing that, Zhang Han brows wrinkled slightly and said, is there a need to work so hard? It was the information age right now. Release a few good quality songs at home, and if bored, go and open 2 concerts was enough already. For Xian to have to shoot MV, do commercial performance, announce news conference and so on other works, it seemed somewhat excessive in Zhang Han's eyes. If not for having drank the pure yang water, Xian would be feeling 2 times more exhausted right now. Furthermore, things like celebrities and money, in the end, they are nothing but floating clouds. With my identity of a cultivator, when all is said and done, in the future, I will be bringing Meng Meng and my family and depart from Earth. After all, when a person succeeds, all his people benefit too. Xian should more or less be counted as a part of my family, right? I also want to properly accompany Meng Meng, but I cannot. I have to earn money. I want to be able to give Meng Meng good education and let her live a worryless life. Moreover, I still have not gotten the honor of Best Actress. I had retired for 5 years, and in this age, where information spreads very fast, everyone is about to forget about me already. Thus, for my comeback, I have to work much harder compared to others to be able to succeed. Xian said unhurriedly. Actually, she was also carrying a very huge pressure. Being in her kind of situation, no matter who was it, they would also feel a huge pressure on them. At this time, a woman would extremely need a man to help her share the pressure, but in Xian's eyes, with Zhang Han's temperament and his view towards show business, she felt that there was no way that he would be of any help to her. You figure it out for yourself then. When you are outside, Take good care of your health. You don't have to keep thinking about earning money. With me here, the family won't be lacking money to spend." Zhang Han muttered for a while, then, very naturally, said out words of concern. "Thank you." Ziyan's voice became somewhat gentler one more time as she said with a somewhat smiling tone, "That's right. I heard Meng Meng saying that the food you cook is very delicious." Zhang Han replied, "Humphrey, to be so confident, seems like you really have some skills in cooking, huh?" Ziyan snorted with a smile and said, "Also, don't instill Meng Meng with whatever insects or not education anymore. If not, when I come back, I will definitely show you some colors." "All right, pass the phone to Meng Meng. I want to speak with her." "Oh." Zhang Han slightly went into a daze. Unknowingly, he had stood beside the sofa and chatted with Ziyan for 5 minutes already. He passed the phone to Meng Meng, who was watching the cartoon on the television, and when Meng Meng heard her mommy's voice, Meng Meng stopped watching the television and began chatting with her mommy. This chat went on for half an hour before coming to a stop, as Ziyan had to go to work. Meng Meng said goodbye very obediently, then hung up the phone. During the entire morning, 10+ waves of customers came to the restaurant in succession. The restaurant's position was not bad, and through the clear glass, the restaurant's unique decor could be seen. That crystal chandelier that was on top of the dining table, the piano which seems extremely graceful, the extremely tidy decor, and various other reasons attracted quite a lot of customers to the restaurant. But because Zhang Han was not cooking, all those people could only sigh and leave. Zhang Han muttered to himself for a bit, "It is not good if it continues like this." Thus Zhang Han placed a notice at the front of the restaurant's door. Opening hours, morning, 07:0008:00, noon, 12:0013:00, night, 18:0019:00, not necessarily open for business every day. Do not disturb during non-business hours. Food, egg fried rice 280 RMB per plate, cow milk 80 RMB per cup, will occasionally have sheep milk, 80 RMB per cup. The opening hours that was like a tyrant clause was already very unscientific when seen by people, but the price of the food, when seen by people, it would make those people who didn't know the truth to feel somewhat resent. Only selling egg fried rice and the price is even that expensive? Only ghosts would come to this restaurant. After Zhang Han finished making the notice, the female staff member of the Spicy Quinla restaurant next door came to take a few looks out of curiosity. When she saw the information written on the notice, she held back her smile and went back to the restaurant. Another mocking and ridicule were about to undergo again in the restaurant next door. At the same time, Jokig's house. "Hey, what rubbish are those? This is worrying me to death." Li Fan took off the headphone irritatedly and said fumingly, "God's sake, to even dare to send over a song that had been researched for less than half a year, I truly can't believe it." "Forget about them sending it over. But even the music sheet is also not complete. Could it be that they are trying to play with us a game of listening to songs and filling up the music sheet?" Ha ha ha. Jokigs laughed slightly and said, "I will listen to the songs during the afternoon. You can go and have a rest first. I feel that if you continue on listening, you are going to turn insane." "I am already insane. I'm insanely hungry." Li Fan's stomach grumbled. He stood up and said, "I will go cook a bowl of instant noodle to eat." "Don't, how about we go out eat? You have been working really work during those few days, let us go out and improve our food." Jokigs asked. "It's okay, it also doesn't hold up the time for me to listen to the songs when I cook a bowl of instant noodle. The concert is only in a few more days. There is not much time left. The concert will only be counted as complete if there are 2 good songs." Li Fan shook his head. Although those sponsors, business and variety shows could not be retrieved, the public opinion was no longer one-sided and the fans were also very supportive of Jokigs. Furthermore, in those 2 days, a smile would occasionally appear on Jokigs' face. When Li Fan saw that, he felt somewhat relieved in his heart. "How about we order some food to eat then? Don't eat instant noodles anymore." Jokiggs placed down the guitar that was in his hand and took out his phone, intending to order some food. "All right, I want an 8-inch pizza, 2 medium rare steaks, and some desserts and snacks." Hearing that, Li Fan smiled and sat back down in front of the computer table. "You are not polite with me in the least bit, huh?" Jokiggs scolded and laughed. Li Fan had been following him for more than 4 years already. Li Fan was earnest in his work and was also responsible and diligent. The relationship between the two of them was very good and they would often joke around with each other in private. Where is the such thing as an employee being polite with his boss? Li Fan grinned and put on the headphone. His gaze looked towards the computer screen once again as he opened the next email. This song's name was called Actor. I feel that the song name is okay, but I reckon the content is a bunch of nonsense again. The information is quite complete, there is even a piece of tuned piano music. What is this thing? This song actually asked for a price of 100k RMB. Crap. Is the person insane? Li Fan shouted out loudly. Normally, within the income of a song, the songwriter would receive 5% royalty, the singer would be able to receive 20 to 40%, and the rest would go to the music company. But because of pirating, all those percentage earnings were actually not that high. Furthermore, sometimes, the copyright of good songs was buy out entirely by one side, and the price would normally be at around 50k to 60k RMB. Only those somewhat famous songwriters would be able to sell a song at the price of above 100k RMB, and Li Fan was familiar with all those songwriters who were qualified, and there was no one who was called Han Yang. For a new guy to dare to ask for the price of 100k RMB, in Li Fan's eyes, the new guy was somewhat arrogant. "Oh, a 100k RMB song, huh? Play it with the stereo sound system, I want to listen to it too." Even Jokiggs himself was curious about the song. "Let us listen to this so-called 100k RMB song then." Li Fan sneered, took off the headphone, plugged in the cable of the stereo sound system and began playing the song accompaniment. When the melodious and solemn piano accompaniment played, Li Fan slightly went into a daze. "This is interesting." Li Fan's expression immediately became extremely serious as he began listening to the accompaniment attentively. And Jokiggs himself had already closed his eyes to enjoy the song accompaniment. Unknowingly, they listened finished to the entire accompaniment. Finally, a song that seems to be the deal. "Let us listen to the tuned piano music," Li Fan said and began playing the piano music. After finish listening to the tuned piano music, Li Fan's brows twitched as he took a look at Jokiggs and said deeply, "I feel that the premium song has arrived." "Take a look at the lyrics." Jokiggs hurriedly moved over. "Simply, talk simply. Please ignore the recent state of mind. You aren't an actor. Don't make up any of those plots." After finish looking at the lyrics, Li Fan's expression was already somewhat excited as he said trembling, "Good, good, good. The lyrics of this song is really good. This is great. I feel that if this song was to sing out by you, it will definitely be perfect." Actor. Jokiggs' gaze was somewhat absent-minded as he mumbled, "This is the song that I want." Chapter 48, Master Pianist. The both of them listened to the piano accompaniment for a number of times. Even when the delivery man knocked on the door, Li Fan was somewhat unwilling to go and open the door. After taking the food, Li Fan placed the food casually at one side, walked back to the computer table and continued studying the song, Actor. Evidently, this song had already conquered the two of them and made the two of them completely forgot about their hunger. After studying the song for 3 hours, Jokiggs took a microphone, played the accompaniment, and began singing. Li Fan listened infatuatedly to Jokiggs' singing. "Simply, talk simply. Please ignore the recent state of mind. You aren't an actor. Don't make up any of those plots." Jokiggs' deep and low voice completely interpreted out the various feelings that were in the song. It was just like that, like he had bestowed the song with a life. This was one of the reasons that this song of his could become popular. It must be said that Jokiggs' singing fundamentals were very deep. When he sang it for the first time, he was already more or less able to grasp how to sing the song. After Jokiggs started singing, He couldn't stop singing. After singing for close to 3 hours, then did Jokings stopped. With excitement brimming in his face, he said, "Li Fan, contact him. I want to find him and ask him to personally guide me about the song. At my concert, I want to present the most perfect state of this song to my fans." Alright. After Li Fan sent an email reply to Zhang Han, the two of them took a look at each other and smiled. At this time, they finally felt that their stomach was incomparably hungry and planned to go eat their lunch, which had already become cold. Of course, those were all afterward. Meng Meng's leisure restaurant was just like its name. The atmosphere within the restaurant was very leisure, with Zhang Han accompanying Meng Meng to play. At noon 11:50 am, Liang Menkai, Yu Qingqing, and Zhao Du came to the restaurant. "Ha ha ha," Zhao Du said as he twisted his body and laughed lightly. "It feels so great today." I straightforwardly threw the resignation letter on the director's face. "This feels so great. Let him always order me around. Humph. Boss, cook a bit more rice for lunch. I want to eat 2 portions. I wasn't able to react in the morning and the egg fried rice were all finished by those 2 heartless fellows. I can only cook that much rice with that rice pot." Zhang Han laughed lightly and replied. Meng Meng's appetite was quite small. Not counting Meng Meng, there were 4 adults present in the restaurant. Speaking according to the quantity of rice in the morning, Zhang Han had a plate, Liang Menkai and Yu Qingqing both had 2 plates, Zhao Du had 1 plate, and Meng Meng had half a plate, which was a total of 6½ a plate. This amount of quantity of rice was enough to prove that the capacity of this house-use rice cooker was already counted as big. Furthermore, Zhang Han felt that it was quite good. He did not want to be like those professional restaurants which had to cook for a long very time once they were opened for business. The significance of the restaurant's existence was just a place to cook food for Meng Meng and stay at. When he cooks for Meng Meng, what he sold during that time were only incidental. As for selling food to earn money, Zhang Han had never thought of it. If he had thought it, it was reckoned that the restaurant's monthly earnings would be above $1 million. Returning back to the topic, after hearing that Zhang Han said that there was only that much amount of rice, Liang Menkai's expression immediately became very vigilant as she said hurriedly, "Let me tell you all, I eat 2 portions every time I'm here. Furthermore, you guys were brought here by me. You all cannot be forget back and turn back on righteousness. Forget favor and turn back on righteousness basically means being ungrateful." After Liang Menkai finished speaking, Yu Qingqing turned around and smacked heavily onto Zhao Du's shoulder and said, "Sissy Zhao, you can only eat 1 plate. Why? People also want N?" Yu Qingqing glared. All right, won't it do if I promise you?" "Seriously." "But 1 plate is not enough for me to eat. How about we split that 2 plates of fried rice into 3 portion?" Zhao Du tried to ask. No. 2 stiff voices immediately replied to him. The resolute tone made Zhao Du to not doubt the slightest that if he was to continue dawdling, the 2 women in front of him would most likely turn into female tigers. Liang Menkai was still okay a bit since she was a lady from a wealthy family. But Yu Qingqing didn't care about all those. She was the kind of ruthless character that would get angry if she said she was going to get angry. Yu Qingqing's taekwondo black belt was not fake at all. Sigh. Zhao Du drooped his head dispiritedly as he sat at the table beside the 2 women and silently shed tears in his heart. As for Liang Menkai and Yu Qingqing, they started chatting together cheerfully. When Meng Meng came down from the 2nd floor to prepare to eat, the 2 women smiled and chatted with Meng Meng for a bit. The food was done. Zhang Han carried his and Meng Meng's lunch to the dining table. There was no need to talk about Liang Menkai and Yu Qingqing. The 2 of them straightforwardly walked to the counter to get the food themselves. The 2 of them were more straightforward this time, as the both of them straightforwardly took 2 plates of egg fried rice. After proudly taking a look at Zhao Du, who was scowling miserably, with a victorious expression, they walked back to the dining table to enjoy the delicious lunch. How is he able to cook it this deliciously? While eating, Yu Qingqing shook her head and sigh. How will I be able to eat the rice of other restaurants in the future? Sigh. Liang Menkai sighed along with Yu Qingqing and said, I'm finished. I'm finished. For me to eat 2 plates of rice in one go, if my brother was to know this, he will definitely laugh at me. Also, if I continue eating like this, I'm afraid that I am going to start growing weight in a few days. Cough, cough. About that, I'm not worried about gaining weight. I'm currently still a bit skinny. How about you two? Zhao Du's feeble voice came from behind. Don't even think about it. The 2 women rejected coldly at the same time. After rejecting Zhao Du, the 2 of them took a look at each other and laughed at the same time. After eating finish, Liang Mengkai patted onto her tummy in satisfaction. With a happy expression, she turned her head around, looked at Zhang Han who was tidying up the dining table with an admiring gaze and said with a joking tone, "Boss, why is your ice that fragrant? Could it be that you added in some kind of poison?" Poison. Zhang Han couldn't help but laugh and said, "Your imagination is truly wide. Be at ease. There is definitely no poison. My ingredients are the best, therefore the rice could be that fragrant. Also, even if you ate 2 plates, you also wouldn't gain weight. As long as you are not like a pig, the kind of person to sleep after having a meal, you won't gain weight." Humphrey. Liang Mengkai blinked her eyes and snorted. People is not a pig. People even do yoga every day. The word people is referring to Liang Mengkai herself. Oh. Yu Qingqing's eyes lighted up as she clicked her tongue and said in a small voice, "To speak in this kind of tone, could it be that you have fallen in love with him?" Hearing that, Liang Mengkai's face became red and rolled her eyes at Yu Qingqing petulantly. Then, she looked towards Zhang Han and said, "Boss, why are you not playing the piano?" Because, only when Meng Meng wants to listen to the piano, then will Daddy play the piano. After Meng Meng drank the last mouth of milk, she swayed her little arm and said, "It that so?" Then, Meng Meng, do you want to listen to your daddy play the piano now? Liang Mengkai asked with a smile. I want to. Daddy, Meng Meng wants to listen to the piano. Meng Meng said with her cute voice. All right, I will play the piano for Meng Meng. Zhang Han placed the utensils that were washed into the cabinet, took off his rubber gloves and hung it on the bottom side of the cabinet, then walked over and carried Meng Meng who was stretching out her little palms and requesting for a hug. After Zhang Han placed Meng Meng at the small sofa which was at the side of the piano, he sat down in front of the piano, opened the piano cover and after thinking for a bit, he turned round and asked, "What do you all want to listen to?" "Castle in the Sky." After muttering for a bit, Liang Mengkai replied while feeling somewhat of a small excitement in her heart. This was the first time that Zhang Han had a bit of the genuine appearance of a restaurant's boss. In Liang Mengkai's eyes, Zhang Han's action was really like that of a gentleman. Zhang Han nodded his head lightly and prepared to play Castle in the Sky. Castle in the Sky was the theme song of one of Japan's very old animation movie. The movie was screened at Japan during the year 1986. The movie tells the story of young orphan Sheeta's adventure of discovering the mystical floating city of Labutu along with a fellow orphan named Pazu who she met while being pursued by both Muska and the pirates, who lust for the city's myriad treasures. The theme song original name was called Carrying You, and was later on generally known as Castle in the Sky. The theme song was composed by the music master, Joe Hisaishi, because of its elegant tune which made others shed tears, and its beautiful tuning which touched the heartstrings of others. It became well known in the entire world, and became the famous movie music which circulated down even to this day. He really knows how to play the piano. I actually thought that Steinway Modulo grand piano was but just a decoration. Yu Qingqing grinned and said in a small voice, as her gaze which looked towards Zhang Han also became very curious. For a restaurant's boss to know how to play the piano, it feels somewhat odd just thinking about it. Very quickly, Zhang Han began playing the piano. There was no whatsoever musical score at all because Zhang Han was incomparably familiar with all of the 88 piano keys of the piano. Zhang Han understood the tone of every piano key very deeply. When Zhang Han began playing, the melodious melody which was at the early part of Castle in the Sky rang out. However, When it was at the middle where there was quite a sad ambience, Zhang Han's playing speed suddenly became fast, letting this somewhat sad music to be filled with a lively atmosphere. This pleasant melody was actually able to make others become infatuated when they listened to it. PFFT. Zhao Du just finished slowly eating the plate of egg fried rice. After finishing, he lightly placed the spoon at one side very solemnly, showing his respect towards the egg fried rice. Then, he picked up the cup of cow milk and drank a mouth. When Zhao Du heard the melodious music, he turned his head round subconsciously. Upon seeing Zhang Han's appearance while Zhang Han was playing the piano, Zhao Du spat out the cow milk that was in his mouth. Cough, cough, cough. Nanny, he really is a master pianist. Don't be noisy. Take a mop and mop clean the area that you just dirtied. Yu Qingqing wrinkled her brows and glared at Zhao Du fiercely. Understood. Zhao Du replied in a small voice and walked towards the kitchen quietly and slowly. After carefully taking the mop, he went to mop the floor. While mopping the floor, he looked somewhat absent-mindedly at Zhang Han who was playing the piano. In a moment, he actually also felt in his heart that Zhang Han was handsome, and even couldn't help but mumbled in a small voice, "How can he be that handsome? If I was a woman, I will definitely chase after him." Castle in the Sky ended quietly under the lively tempo. You played it very well. Yu Qingqing praised loudly. Humphrey, Humph, as I said, the boss is a master pianist, and he is even more formidable compared to Lang Zong. Liang Mengkai said somewhat proudly. Indeed. Zhao Du nodded his head and agreed. When I heard you said that, I didn't believe it at first. But right now, I also feel that the boss is better compared to Lang Zong. No, the boss is the most formidable master pianist that is alive in this world. Zhao Du originally did not like Zhang Han very much, and it was mainly because of that incident at the beach. Just that, after coming to the restaurant today, this restaurant completely toppled Zhao Du's notion. The egg fried rice and milk had conquered his stomach, this melodious piano music had conquered his ears, and Zhang Han, this person himself, was nearly at the point of conquering his soul. He did not understand just how could a person be this formidable. Chapter 49. Uninvited Guest. It was peaceful within the restaurant, but little did they know, a group of unexpected guests would be coming to the restaurant soon. In front of the traffic light that was at the end of the street, a white-color Toyota Land Cruiser was currently waiting for the traffic lights. Within the car, there was a total of 5 people. Other than the person who drove the car wore a white-color short-sleeved shirt, the 4 other people all wore black-color short-sleeved shorts, revealing the tattoo that was on their arm. Taking a look at those, it could be easily seen that those group of people were gangsters. The 4 people who wore black-color short-sleeved shirts all had brightly colored hair, and only the person that was driving the car had a crew cut that was similar to Zhang Han's crew cut. The driver's jawline was sharp and clear, resembling somewhat like Eddie Pang Yuyen, possessing quite a handsome look. Calmness was visible in his gaze and there was an aura of a person who was in a higher position in him. Furthermore, from the respectful attitude that the few other people showed towards him, it could be seen that this person who was driving the car had the highest position within the few people in the car. This person was Zhao Feng, who was known as Madman in the underworld. Brother Feng, there are only those few small restaurants left to deal with. After we get the management fee from them, we are done with our work. The rough-looking male who was sitting in the front passenger seat said. Zhao Feng nodded his head. Sigh, this year's management fees are too simple to collect already. Unlike in the previous years where there would still be some who didn't want to hand over the management fee. There would be some fun if there were still people like that. I like seeing the terrified look of those people when they yield and hand over the money. Haha. I hope the next few restaurants would show a bit of resistance. If not, I'm going to be bored to death from having no fights to fight for the past few days. A yellow-haired youth curled his lips and said with a smile, Xuanhuan, you only know how to fight, and fight every day. It would be fine to act cool if you have Brother Zhao's skills, but you are thin like a fool. What do you even want fight for? Another person dissed ruthlessly. Fuck. How many people could be that awesome like Brother Zhao? Even if I am no match for people like Brother Zhao, am I no match for some weaklings? Let me tell you all, if there is any restaurant boss that doesn't agree to hand over the management fee later on, don't try to snatch him away from me. The yellow-haired youth said with an evil grin. That's enough. After the red light passed, Zhao Feng drove the car forward. While driving the car, he wrinkled his brows slightly and said, collect the management fees honestly. Don't do any of those messy things. If you want to fight, go find someone from Tongliu Gulf's Xuanhuan to fight. He. The yellow-haired youth grinned and laughed, then said in a small voice, where would I even have Brother Feng's capability? Back then when Brother Feng you went and broke the hand of one of Xuanhuan's Hallmaster's son, in the end, that Hallmaster didn't even dare to find you to take revenge. If it was changed to me, I reckoned I would be crippled during the night of that day. Zhao Feng took a look at him from the rear view mirror and did not say anything else. 2 years ago, Zhao Feng came to Xiangjiang's South District and joined Yonggang. Only using the time of 2 years, thanks to the help of his ruthless and resolute methods, Zhao Ping became the #1 fighter of the gang's boss, Tang Zan. There was no need to doubt Zhao Feng's strength. Yonggang and Xuanhuan were famous underground powers of Xiangjiang. The two gangs were enemies. Xuanhuan was the underground big shot at the area around Longchuo Gulf, and Yonggang was the underground big shot of South District. They were both underground powers, but Yong society did things much more ruthlessly and decisively. Yong society was proficient in sex steals, gambling, and drugs. Furthermore, they even had a branch for smuggling. Zhao Feng was actually a special forces soldier. But because of various reasons, back then, he committed negligent manslaughter and was imprisoned for 2 years. Later on, the government department found him and gave him a new identity, letting him regain his freedom. The price was that he had to join Yonggang and search for the proof of the various crimes that Tang Zan committed, then take over Tang Zan's place and properly manage Yonggang and keep sex steals, gambling, and drugs far away from the South District. During the 2 years, Zhao Feng had gathered some evidence, but all these evidence were not enough to sentence Tang Zan. Thus, Zhao Feng took risks and hooked up with one of Tang Zan's women. Just when he was about to obtain important evidence, that woman suddenly disappeared, and he was sent by Tang Zan to come to Crescent Gulf to handle the kind of things like collecting rent. Actually, he was quite disgusted with going to every shop to collect the management fee. In addition, this so-called management fee was just basically a nicer way of saying protection fee. Collecting protection fee was one of Yonggang's source of income. We have collected from this restaurant. We have also collected from this. The blue-collar hair male who was sitting at the front passenger seat browsed through an account book. Suddenly, he pointed to the Quinla restaurant that was beside the street and said, "This is the place. We still have not collected from this Quinla restaurant and the 6 restaurants at the back. Let's get off the car." Zhao Feng straightforwardly stopped the car at the front of the Quinla restaurant, and the 5 of them got off the car in succession and walked into the restaurant. The female attendant who went to check out Zhang Han's restaurant walked up and welcomed the 5 people with a smile. When she saw the manner of the few people, her expression withdrew back and felt somewhat afraid in her heart. "Call your boss to come out," the yellow-haired youth said with a rude and unreasonable tone. This. The female's expression was somewhat bitter as she said in a small voice, "I'm sorry, our boss is currently not here. Only the manager is here." "Don't you fucking understand human words? If he is not here, call him to come here." The yellow-haired youth glared. The fierce look made the female's body trembled. "Call your manager over first." Zhao Feng waved his hand towards her and said, all right, please wait a moment." The female hurriedly turned around and ran. A few minutes later, the manager of the restaurant walked over in quick steps. The manager's face was full of smile as he said, "Good afternoon to the few of you customers. I am the restaurant's manager. Not sure what the few of you." "Don't speak rubbish. Give your boss a call and tell him that Yonggang is here to collect the management fee." The yellow-hair youth wrinkled his brows and said, all right, please wait a moment." The manager's face changed, and there was some fear in the gaze that he looked towards the few people. Hurriedly walking over to the counter, he used the fixed phone to call his boss. When the call got through, he spoke while nodding his head at the same time. After speaking a few sentences, he hung the phone and immediately took out 2.5 pile of money from the drawer. "There are 25k RMB here. My boss said that the extra money here is for treating the few of you to drink tea," the manager said with a face full of smile. "Hey." The yellow-hair male snatched over the money and said with some satisfaction in his gaze, "Count you all as sensible." Normally, for a small restaurant like this, the protection fee that they would collect was 20k RMB per year. Sometimes when people like them who comes out to collect the management fee found a boss who seems good to bully, they would ask for more management fee and take the extra management fee for themselves. For this Kunla restaurant to give an additional 5k RMB management fee, in the eyes of the few people, the restaurant belonged to the kind that was sensible. "Let's go." Zhao Feng did not have any expression. After he nodded his head with a slight smile towards the manager, he turned around and took the lead to leave. Meng Meng's Leisure Restaurant? What an interesting restaurant name. Upon seeing the restaurant's name, the yellow-hair male sneered. "Ayo, look at the notice board. In a day, they are only opened for business for a total of 3 hours. What the heck? Egg fried rice for 280, milk for 80. Fuck, isn't this restaurant evidently trying to cheat people?" The blue-hair male grinned and said, "Brother Feng, since this restaurant's food is sold that expensive, shouldn't we also double the amount of money to collect from them?" "Double what money?" "Every restaurant's management fee is 20k. Young society's income is not earned by depending on those protection fees." Zhao Feng's brows twitched and said with a reprimanding tone, then took the lead to walk into the restaurant. Within the restaurant, Zhang Han's playing of Marriage d'Amour was already at its end. Zhang Han saw the scene outside of the restaurant, and even the words that those few people said, Zhang Han also heard it clearly too. Revolving the spiritual strength within his body to the both of his ears would enable the listening capability of the ears to raise several times. However, Zhang Han did not stop playing the piano, and Liang Menkai, Yu Qingqing, Zhao Du, and Meng Meng were also listening infatuatedly to the Marriage d'Amour that Zhang Han was playing. "Where is the boss? Call the boss to come out." After entering into the restaurant, the yellow-hair youth shouted just as he usually did. The shouting gave the few of them a shock. Liang Menkai's brows wrinkled, a trace of fierceness flashed past Yu Qingqing's eyes, and Zhao Du blocked in front of Yu Qingqing while feeling anxious. Zhang Han's fingers that were playing the piano came to a stop, and the piano sound dissipated. With an indifferent voice, he said, "Quiet down." After finished speaking, Zhang Han continued playing the final small section of Marriage d'Amour. While playing, he took a glance at Meng Meng, who had a somewhat fearful expression, and muttered in his heart for a bit. "Should I reveal out my skills in front of Meng Meng this time?" Zhang Han considered. Ever since he came into contact with cultivation, he had practically never fought and also didn't go around killing here and there. Searching for treasures to enrich one's life was the true essence. But right now, in the front of Meng Meng, Zhang Han did not mind revealing out a valiant side of his. After finishing playing the piano, Zhang Han stood up. "Who is the boss? Huh? Can't you guys hear what I say?" the yellow-hair youth shouted with an arrogant expression. Daddy, I'm scared," Meng Meng said in a small voice. Looking at her expression, it was reckoned that if the yellow-hair youth was to shout a few more times, she would start crying from being scared. "Meng Meng, don't be scared." Liang Mengkai couldn't stand looking at it anymore and walked with large steps to the front of Meng Meng and blocked Meng Meng behind her, then looked towards the yellow-hair youth and said with an angry expression, "What are you shouting for? Don't you have any bit of manners?" This scene caused the yellow-hair youth and the few others to go into a daze slightly. "Ayo, don't say, this woman looks quite pretty. And her goods are also not small. I reckoned that her goods would feel good to touch," the blue-hair male said with a lowly smiling face. Apart from Zhao Feng, who was frowning slightly, the few others all started laughing. Actually, Zhao Feng extremely dislikes the personality of the few people. But he couldn't do anything about it. His identity right now was that he was one of them. If he was to act upright, and the news of that was to spread to Tang Jiang's ears, it would inevitably give rise to suspicions. Therefore, during those 2 years, even when he came across his subordinates bullying other people, he would basically not go and care about it. He had to suppress the kindness in his heart and do his job to the best that he could. But right now, seeing that the adorable Meng Meng was about to be scared to the point of crying, and seeing that the gorgeous female in front of him was being sexually harassed, Zhao Feng was already somewhat at the point where could no longer suppress the fire in his heart and was even intending to find a chance to properly give those few subordinates a teaching when he goes back. This block of Liang Mengkai made Zhang Han to somewhat look at her in her different light and felt a trace of good impression towards her raised in his heart. However, the little princess was more important. Thus Zhang Han carried Meng Meng in the first moment and said gently, "Meng Meng, don't be afraid. Daddy is here." Daddy, they are so scary. Within her daddy's embrace, Meng Meng felt much more at ease. However, her voice was still very small. "They are not scary, they are only pretending. Didn't Daddy tell you before?" "What are they?" "One word," Zhang Han said with a light smile. Ants? Meng Meng replied after pondering for a bit. Chapter 50, Pressuring. For a lion's head Snoopy, gadget. Right, they are ants. Zhang Han laughed, and extended his hand to scrape Meng Meng's face. Ha ha. An ant. Receiving Zhang Han's praise, Meng Meng looked at Zhang Han's smiling face, and all the fear in his heart disappeared, as he chuckled. This scene not only made the yellow hair and the others' expressions change, even Liang Mengkai was stunned. She could not understand why Zhang Han's heart was so heavy. The people in front of her were clearly hoodlums. What if they started fighting and got injured? What if he couldn't make a meal? What if he couldn't coax the child? What if I can't play the piano? Did he ever think about the consequences? Liang Mengkai felt angry and amused at the same time. As for Zhang Han, he turned his head and looked at Zhao Feng and the others. His expression was indifferent, and his tone of voice was still as gentle as before. "You little ant, I can strangle you with my fingers." Does Meng Meng want to see how far they will beat up those bad guys? "Brat, what did you say?" The yellow hair's expression turned vicious, and he stretched his hand towards the back of his waist, where his dagger was. This action caused the atmosphere to turn cold, while Yu Qingqing's body tensed up, as if he was planning to attack as well. Seeing that, Meng Meng became a little afraid, and anxiously said, "I don't want to see, I don't want to see." Meng Meng doesn't want to see Papa fight. Meng Meng knew that she would be injured if she fought. She did not want to see where Papa was injured. "Fine, fine, fine. I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. It's okay." Zhang Han hurriedly turned his head and coaxed her with a few words, then handed Meng Meng over to the Liang Mengkai beside him and said, "Help me hug him." "Oh, okay." Liang Mengkai took Meng Meng and turned around, not allowing Meng Meng to see those bad guys. Zhang Han walked to the computer counter, opened the drawer and took out 3 stacks of bills. After that, he walked towards Zhao Feng and the others. His gaze became extremely indifferent, and his eyes revealed a sense of disdain, as though he was an emperor looking at his own citizens. Although Zhang Han's footsteps were slow, it gave the people in front of him quite a bit of pressure. Even Zhao Feng's expression changed slightly. "It's an expert apostrophe." Zhao Feng's pupils contracted slightly. "If you want to collect fees, do it honestly." Zhang Han placed the money in the yellow-haired youth's hands, laughed lightly, and said, "It's not that you have a loud voice, but you're very powerful. If you dare to step in here in the future, your life doesn't need to exist." Zhang Han's words were plain, but they gave these few people a pressure as heavy as Mount Tai. Other than Zhao Feng, the others even felt that this pressure was stronger than what Tang Zan had come from. This was a society governed by the law. But they did not doubt Zhang Han's words at all. They felt the same way in their hearts, that if yellow hair came to the restaurant next time, he might really lose his life. Who is he? Why? How could he emit such a great pressure? Especially the yellow-haired youth, he felt the greatest pressure. At this moment, he actually wanted to open his mouth and say, I understand. Especially in front of Zhao Feng. If he behaved like a coward, it would be even more shameful. He even felt that if he performed well and was looked upon by Zhao Feng, then he would definitely be able to rise to the top of the society. Therefore, the youth endured the monstrous pressure. With a flushed face, he gritted his teeth and said, You. Just as the words left his mouth, suddenly, bam! With a dull thud, the yellow-haired youth's face turned from red to white. Drops of cold sweat trickled down his forehead. On his chest, a huge fist was lying there. The fist was not Zhang Han's, but Zhao Feng's fist. Zhao Feng used 50% of his strength to punch his opponent, causing the yellow hair to immediately feel unbearable pain. It was so painful that he couldn't even speak. From that muffled sound, it was clear that this punch was not light. Zhao Feng didn't even spare yellow hair a glance as he stared at Zhang Han and said apologetically, Sir, I am truly sorry that I didn't properly discipline my subordinates and scared your daughter. It was my fault. All right, you can leave after you've collected the money. Zhang Han gave him a bland look. From his body, Zhang Han could faintly feel the bloodlust of a soldier. After he finished speaking, Zhang Han turned around and walked to Liang Mengkai's side and carried Meng Meng, then sat down at the dining table and coaxed him. Zhao Feng muttered to himself, then took out a name card from his pocket and placed it on the table. He smiled, then said, Sir, we are not randomly collecting fees. There are some local thugs here. If they are causing trouble here, then you can give me a call. Here is my business card. Your restaurant is very interesting. If there is a chance, I will take care of the business. Goodbye. After Zhao Feng finished speaking, he took the lead and walked out. His words were also true. At the same time collecting protection fees, they would also be in charge of the restaurant's safety. If someone caused trouble, then their people would be able to arrive at the place in less than 5 minutes to resolve the problem, but under normal circumstances they would leave behind the company's special number. But this time, Zhao Feng had left behind his private number, because he felt that the Zhang Han in front of him was very extraordinary, to the point that he could even use the word terrifying to describe him. In his heart, he even felt that if he were to fight with the owner of this restaurant, he would definitely be the one to lose. But he was one of the top 3 in the special forces back then. As for him, was it really just the owner of a restaurant? Zhao Feng was a little absent-minded as he walked out the door. Brother Feng, why did you hit me just now? The yellow hair's face turned slightly pale as he said innocently, Bam. This time, Zhao Feng did not hold back at all and kicked the yellow hair 5 meters away, falling onto the ground while covering his stomach with cold sweat. We are here to collect rent, not to cause trouble. If you dare do this again, I will break your leg and throw you out of Hong Kong. Zhao Feng's face was gloomy, his tone extremely cold. His words scared the others into silence. In the underworld, no one had ever doubted their words of a madman. The origin of his nickname was made from blood, and he never broke his word. I know. The yellow-hair man grinned in pain and replied with difficulty. He knew that if he did not respond, with Zhao Feng's personality, he would probably attack again. Next one. Zhao Feng said coldly and led the way to the next restaurant. The yellow hair was helped up by his 2 companions and followed quietly behind them. After this incident, the other restaurants would probably receive quite a bit of polite treatment. Inside Zhang Han's dining room, Meng Meng, didn't I already tell you? They are just ants, we don't need to be afraid. Zhang Han said to Meng Meng with a smile. But they look too scary. Meng Meng said weakly. That's right. Meng Meng is a cute, soft girl, how can she not be afraid of those ugly people? Liang Mengkai said with a light smile. You're pretty brave. Zhang Han looked at Liang Mengkai, and shook his head with a smile. Humphrey. I'm not afraid of those hooligans. Boss, let me tell you, it's a good thing we're here today. Do you know what King does? Let me tell you, King is a black belt taekwondo expert. Liang Mengkai shook his head and said with slight complacency, "Oh, is that so?" "That's right." Zhang Han looked at Yu King strangely. "Of course, my family's King is very powerful," Zhao Du said as he shook his head. "Nope." Yu King walked over and looked at Zhang Han in surprise. "Boss, just a few words and you scared those people away. I can't compare to you." The pressure just now was not only felt by Zhao Feng and the rest, but also by Yu King and the others. On the other hand, Liang Mengkai and Zhao Du did not feel anything. They only felt that Zhang Han had an imposing manner, and the better the skills he had, the deeper the feeling, as if the two societies' people could see after looking at each other for a while and could tell whether he was truly fierce or was trying to show off. My papa is the strongest. Every time others praised Zhang Han, he would feel as if they were praising himself. The pride in his heart was all displayed on his face, and the key thing was that Zhang Han still enjoyed it a lot. Which father didn't want to be high and mighty in the eyes of their children? Cough, cough. Seeing that Zhang Han was smiling so sweetly and feeling so good, Liang Mengkai felt that a chance had come. He coughed lightly and said, Boss, can I ask you a favor?" "Yes, go ahead." Of course, in Zhang Han's eyes, there was a difference of respect for 1 foot. Just by speaking with respect, it was useless, but the way Liang Mengkai blocked in front of Meng just now, Zhang Han could be considered a true respect. Therefore, facing her request, Zhang Han would consider. "Boss, can you cook more ice at once?" "See, Mistress Zhao isn't even full yet." Liang Mengkai glanced at Zhao Du and said. Zhao Du was startled, then overjoyed, and agreed with a fawning expression, "Yes, that's right, big brother boss. I really can't fill my stomach." "You deserve it if you don't have enough to eat." Hearing Zhao Du's lowly expression and tone, goosebumps rose all over Yu King's body as he said, "Scram! Don't be so disgusting." "But I really can't fill my stomach," Zhao Du said pitifully. "The rice pot here is not big. Every time I cook, I make the most of it," Zhang Han said as he shook his head slightly. Hearing that, Liang Mengkai's expression paused, and asked hesitantly, "Then, why don't we change it to a different steamer?" Zhao Du's eyes lit up, and he anxiously said, "That's right, why not change the pot? I'll pay for their wok." "Oh no, I'll buy the wok." Looking at their expressions, Meng felt that it was interesting. She raised her little palm and cheered, "Change the pot, change the pot." Under everyone's gazes, Zhang Han smiled and nodded, "Okay, yay." Zhao Du jumped in joy. He said passionately, "Boss, go take a rest. I'll clean up this place, as long as it isn't a mess." Zhang Han did not care what they did. He only warned them and then carried Meng upstairs. "Don't worry, it won't be a mess even if you specify a tiny bit of it." Zhao Du gave the order with a serious face.